for the day. And today we are having a Just Chatting collab with Rad Mahou. But before we do that, yeah, I have to give thanks to a raid that popped in during our pre-stream here. Thank you, Armored Horns.
Thank you, Raiders.
They can't hear you yet, Rad.
Oh, well.
Rad also says thank you.
You can hear on my end where the raid doesn't exist. Oh no, Nightbot, what are you doing?
I can't spell. There we are. Ah, and Kay's here too. But yeah, let me get switched over to Just Chatting so that you guys can hear Rad. But thank you so much for the raid.
Hello.
Okay. All right, everybody can hear everything. Yes.
Hello. Hi. How's it going? How you doing?
Yes. Hi, YouTube. I'm Deus. You've
I'm
probably
Rad.
seen me before.
I'm Rad.
This
over
lovely
on
little
YouTube.
Muppet by my side is Rad Mahou, YouTube VTuber.
Yeah.
Oh.
We've been playing a bunch of different games because, goddamn, this year is still packed.
Mm-hmm.
Still packed.
I think it's finally slowing down a little bit.
Sort of. There's like... Oh, well, I accept hugs. Thank you very much. I think there's still like a bunch of indie stuff coming out.
Oh, because I spelled it wrong. Trying to give a shout out to Kay, and
Two
Kay is also a
A's.
streamer.
Okay.
Yep. Seeing you chat in my chat reminds me I should bring yours up too. We are very professional streamers. We're very prepared and definitely not 30 minutes late.
Always prepared. I absolutely never launch my stream without like remembering to configure bits of OBS or VTube Studio, nothing like that.
No, nothing.
Never launch
nothing.
muted.
Mm.
Always on time.
Never launch while somebody else's stream is in the background and somebody has to point that out to you.
That happened once. That happened
And
once.
I was there.
I'm glad you were. I don't need Niji Sanji getting on my ass.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching an Aya stream. I forget which one.
Oh, no.
She may have been playing Blasphemous, which is a game I'm playing that rules.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, since Rad and I were playing a lot of similar games for a while, and then we kind of diversified a bit in September. It's been a while since we've done one of these too. So I think we missed the last couple. So
Maybe, yeah.
Gonna reconnect tonight. Kay thinks you're very cute, Rad.
Thank you, Kay.
Mm-hmm.
I've been
so we're
thinking of redoing it, but I do like the big hat.
Your model will always have the big hat. I'm confident of this.
You're not wrong. I'm working on a second one extremely slowly and very infrequently, and definitely still gonna have a big hat.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta have a big hat.
Yeah. But we thought we'd meet up again tonight and chat about the games we're playing and what we like about them, what games we recommend. Yes, he's a puppet wizard. What is your wizard classification? Are you a red wizard or red mage or what?
I'm a extra dimensional wizard. I don't come
Extra
from here.
dimensional wizard.
I push around physics.
You do not adhere to the Final Fantasy wizard principles. Understood.
No, I am rather a huge fan of Final Fantasy, but and you know what? I main Black Mage in FF14 among like a bunch of other stuff, but no, I don't. My name is actually from Rad comes from Final Fantasy Tactics. Wherein, yeah, the initial release of FF Tactics, they were going to have a character named Lad, but because of old translation issues, he ended up being named Rad. And I was like, that's super cool. They had a character named Rad, and only years later did I find out it was a mistake. So I think in War of the Lions, they changed it back to Lad, and I decided to keep it. War of the Lions is great, though. If you've never played Final Fantasy Tactics, that's the version to play. It's super good.
I have played Tactics. I have not played War of the Lions version.
It's so good.
I should retouch that one at some point.
Yeah, they add a couple of things and then they like fix up the translation to be extra extra good, which it didn't really need, but it totally benefits from.
Nice. Yeah, that's a classic. What was that?
Also, thank you all.
PlayStation game?
Yeah, that's PS1. I think it's like late PS1.
Yeah.
But it's PS1, bunch of sprites. Nice
classic
TT.
tactics game. My God.
Yeah, super good.
But yeah, so I think on my advertisement graphic, I posted 3 games for each of us. For myself, Rack and Ruin, Evil West, which I keep accidentally calling Evil Dead, which is a very easy mistake to make, but Evil West and Sea of Stars. And then for you, I posted Baldur's Gate 3, Blasphemous 2, and Lies of P.
Those are definitely the ones I've been playing recently, for sure.
So yeah, were you playing anything else? I don't think so. Yeah.
No, yeah, we were both playing Armored Core for a little while, and then I don't know if we were playing like the same thing before.
We were doing Final Fantasy before that, but then we
were both doing FF16, right?
Yeah, we were both doing 16, and then
we had a big stream about that.
Yeah, we did. What the hell else was I playing in the last few weeks? I completely blanked. I actually have to look at Discord to see like what the fuck have I been doing with my life?
I have really wanted to pick up Sea of Stars because it looks cool, and I've been following them, and I've almost but not quite completed The Messenger, which I don't know how those games are related at all.
I figured that out now.
Yeah?
And I can tell you without it being a big spoiler.
Sure.
But yeah, it looks like I was mostly playing after Final Fantasy. I was playing a lot of Earthbound. That's why.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have 1 week that's 5 nights of Final Fantasy, and then I start Earthbound right after that when I beat Final Fantasy. Yeah,
Earthbound's so good.
Oh, I beat that one. I beat it in 8 weeks, so I did one sanctuary per week. On
nice. Nice. Yeah, I forget how short that game is because I spent so much time playing it as a kid.
Yeah, because playing through the whole thing, 8 3-hour streams. It's only 25 hours or so. So yeah.
Right. It's not like super short or anything, but it goes pretty quickly.
It's so good. But we can probably talk at length about classic games and good stuff there. But
Sure.
and what time honored tradition, similar when we were playing Don't Talk and or Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. Let's flip a coin. See who goes first.
Sure.
Heads or tails?
I'll take tails.
It was tails. You go first. Pick a game and begin the chat.
Let's see. You know what? I'll actually keep it short and talk about Baldur's Gate first.
You have some Baldur's Gate fans in the chat. I know Kay for a fact was playing Baldur's Gate a little bit.
That game's so good. I've
heard nothing but good things.
Yeah, okay. When it comes to negatives, there are definitely still bugs. In fact, my last stream I played through like a quest line that kind of sort of locks you in, and then got to the end and like a piece to a puzzle that's like a side section just disappeared from my inventory completely, and it was very perplexing. But I was able to just replay right after stream to kind of get caught up.
Was that the quest with the Githyanki at their creche, or was that a different one?
That's the overall quest. There was like a puzzle kind of outside of their creche, but in the same location. And so you get a thing that like gives you a blessing and unlocks a thing later, but the item completely disappeared from my inventory. So like there are little bugs, but they're doing such a good job patching out a lot of the bugs and very frequently updating. And given Larian Studios is very well known for like the Divinity series, and that got updated all the time for like a really long time. So they're going to keep on updating Baldur's Gate. I don't know if they're going to give it any DLC. That's not usually their thing. But like they added some glamour options recently. And that game's just, it's so high quality. I say I'll keep it short by talking about Baldur's Gate because like I think people know at this point. Yeah,
kind of, and like I said, Kay specifically has been playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Mhm.
She loves it. She was playing the heck out of it. A bunch of people from our collaboration for that speed dating were playing Baldur's Gate 3.
It's
Big
fantastic.
one was Dan the Draconian.
Sure.
Has been playing it a lot on stream lately, and he's been loving it.
Sure.
So, yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. A friend of mine finally that I know IRL picked it up, and I saw him playing. I'm like, hey, so I saw you playing that. How you like it? He's like, it's so good. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And he's apparently still in Act 1, which they recommend like don't leave it until like level 5. And he's like, I'm level 6, almost level 7. There's so much to do. I'm still not done.
I think I'm almost level 8, and I haven't beat Act 1 yet.
I'm like, you're still in Act 1. Oh my god.
So I was also catching up. Well, I almost did too, but I'm totally not. So I was also catching up with a friend who like never plays RPGs. They really like Metroidvanias and a couple of other games. They're like a music producer guy, and so they really like games with cool soundtracks. And I'm kind of trying to sell them on the FF7 remake because the soundtrack in there is so good. And he had picked up Baldur's Gate and has never played RPGs, never played a tabletop RPG. So he's like getting used to short and long rests and all the different classes and things he can do. And so we were just kind of catching up because we hadn't talked in a while and talking about Baldur's Gate. And I was explaining like crazy stuff you can do with Speak with Dead and Disguise and Silence. And he ran into the same thing. He was like, dude, that game's so crazy. There's so much reactivity and different ways of doing things. And I'm 25 hours in and I'm still in Act 1. And I was like, dude, I'm like 50 hours in and I'm still in Act 1.
I think the only negative I've heard about it is one person was playing it and there was so much to do. It triggered their FOMO, their fear of missing out. And they just felt compelled to do everything, and it made them really anxious that they were missing stuff. So they just had to like put it down because it was just triggering that too much. Like that's literally the only negative I've heard.
That's
other than, like you
that's
said,
totally
occasional glitches, and it's legit because they were like, it is a good game, but it's not good for me.
Yeah.
Valid.
That's it's totally valid. There's some of that. I think it's really easy to kind of do everything at your own pace, but at the same time, like there's so much variety in the way that you can do things and encounter stuff that like you can't see everything in a single playthrough.
Yeah, I'm certain of that. Yeah,
there's so many.
Because I know one thing where you literally have to pick a side in a conflict because you can't see both sides of it. Yeah,
that's true. Even if like not only do you somewhat early on have to like pick sides, you can like backstab either of them. You can kind of get to the culmination of the conflict and then pick which side you're going with, no matter what you've told the other two. You can so there's a lot of different ways to go through that game. You can be a total murder hobo and just kill literally everyone. There are people going through doing like solo plays where they don't even have a party. They don't use any of the normal party members. They just use their own character and that's it. I saw people going through at like doing level 1 runs and it's viable.
How the hell is a level 1 run viable?
Because you can get really creative.
True.
But yeah, it's totally viable. Like even where I am, I had to fight my way out of a creche, and that feels unavoidable, but maybe not. And even if it is unavoidable, you could just make yourself invisible and sneak out. That's a thing you can do. So it's great. It's the most D&D game a computer RPG has ever been ever. Everything just works like you would think it would work according to D&D rules.
Yeah, they really did go the extra mile to make it seem like that.
It's a huge passion project by people who like have been doing TTRPGs or CRPGs and tabletop RPGs for a really long time. Yeah, it's fantastic. It like I've said this a million times, and even though I'm thoroughly loving Blasphemous, we both thoroughly loved Armored Core 6. There's a billion fantastic games out this year. Baldur's Gate is the one that's getting Game of the Year at every award show, without question.
Definitely feels like it should from what you've said of it. But
it's so good. I would, as someone who likes D&D, I would recommend it to you. It's surprisingly quality.
I don't know why I'm not drawn to it. I don't like. Maybe it's just the hyper realism because I tend to prefer more like cartoonish or anime things, and I definitely lean more to like pixel art style stuff, which it's not. Honestly, if they made the game anime as fuck, which admittedly there's a sexy vampire boy who talks shit to you a lot, which is anime as fuck, let's be honest.
Yeah, I'll say it's anime in the same way that like Devil May Cry is one of the most anime things you'll ever play, even though it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. But I don't know. Like just aesthetically, there's something about it that just hasn't captured my attention quite the way I look for in a game.
Sure.
Maybe I'll give it a try at some point in the future. Just for the short term, there was other things I wanted to play, and I don't want to shell out another like $60 game. I've done that for a couple things already, including Armored Core, which I was not planning on getting, and that's why I played it off stream. But I loved the hell out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I have very little to say that hasn't been said before. It's surprisingly quality all over the place. Anything you can think of that might work probably works. It's great.
Yeah. So I guess it'll be going to me next.
Yeah, have at it.
And I might as well start off with Sea of Stars because you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
That has been very good. I am 8 streams in, so I'm basically doing like 2 on the weekend. Because once I finished Earthbound, I'm just doing double Sea of Stars.
Sure.
I have the full party now, finally.
Okay.
I have like the major like plot conflict is active. And so like I kind of, because you start off a game and you like, it's rare that you have a game where like you're going to beat this evil demigod thing. Like it's the rule in every JRPG, but you never start at level 1 with that being the goal.
Sure. Even in RPGs where like
rarely.
Even in RPGs where like the first thing that happens is your hometown burns down, whoever does that is usually working for some greater evil.
Yeah, I think the last time like I remember it was like, what was it? Lunar 2 Eternal Blue, because literally somebody like warps into your hometown from the moon and it's like, you need to take me to so and so that they can stop this evil god from awakening. Like that's one of the few instances where that has been the case. So it's taken a while to kind of like put all the pieces on the board, and I think I finally see them all.
Okay.
And it's interesting to see it all put together.
Yeah,
combat is good.
Yeah.
But if you are looking for a challenging RPG, baseline difficulty is actually pretty brutal.
Really?
Like, oh yeah. So like, take an example from one of my recent streams this weekend.
Okay.
Since it's done by the same people who did The Messenger, I was actually doing a little bit of research for The Messenger and seeing like, are there similarities between these two? Do certain characters show up again? And one of the enemies from The Messenger, which kind of looks like a golem sitting in front of like a DJ stand almost.
Okay.
Let me
Is it a big green thing? Because that's the only golem I remember. I would expect basically only the enemy faction is like what ties them together.
No, they're same world. So actually, I'll tell you right now.
I meant character-wise.
There are definitely some similar people. Yeah, here's the enemy. I mean, I will send it to you in Discord, and I'll share it on stream too. But it's these guys.
Oh, that's just like a regular normal little enemy.
Yeah, it is a regular normal enemy. I also love the name. Their just name is the Baldur douche.
Yeah,
but
they're kind of shitty.
But he's sitting there and he's kind of like drumming or playing DJ on like, the first ones I run into are ice based, and its basic attack is like it pushes down the one, the other block comes up, it punches it, and AoEs your entire team.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. In this game, enemies, basically every enemy, has a spell or a skill that they're casting. And you interrupt it by striking them with certain types of damage. So like they might want, 2 sources of slashing damage and 1 source of solar damage.
Okay.
So you can either have like one of your 2 sword fighters hit them twice, and then like your one person who knows solar magic hit them with a spell, and that'll stop them from casting. Or you can do some clever things and get extra hits of damage in. For that one, preventing I had one time when I couldn't prevent him from casting a spell, and what he does is he basically threw a block of ice at me for 200 damage blocking, because you can time your hits to do extra damage, and you can time your blocks to take less damage.
Yeah, so you have timed interactions.
Blocking the hit was 200 damage. That was more than that character's max HP would have done without me using items to double their max HP.
Wow.
I went from like 100 or 280 health to like 70, blocking the hit, and I'm doubling my health. So that would have just one-shot a character from full health, which is insane and brutal. That's normal enemies. That's not a boss.
Yeah, so it really, really, really wants you to engage with the like interrupt mechanic.
It wants you to do that. Like if you definitely wants you to do that. But you can definitely crank the difficulty left and right depending on how you want to play it, because right at the beginning of the game they give you 2 items. They're your first batch of relics, one of which doubles all your characters' max HP based off whatever their base is, and heals them back to full after combat. It only heals the health. It doesn't recover mana, so you still have some value in resting.
That's still pretty potent.
It's still very potent, but it basically takes. You don't have to like burn resources after combat to heal then. But the other one helps you time your attacks better, because it gives you like a visual feedback of when you get the timing right.
Oh, that's neat.
So, yeah, useful. One of the ones you get
for
later,
people who don't have rhythm.
Yeah, or just you just want to make sure you are getting it right and you are mastering it. So then it will tell you literally when you got it right.
Right.
Because there's no indication otherwise. Like, well, I shouldn't say that. When you time like a basic attack, like they'll hit twice.
Right.
Like if you're timing a spell, it doesn't tell you. It just, unless you're using the thing where like a ball of light flies off your head or something, and that's how you know.
But you could see like the number is way bigger, or something.
Sometimes it's not significantly bigger though.
Sometimes you have like a different effect to timed attacks.
Like meaning like they don't double damage. They might do like 10% more.
Okay.
So like, if you're going into a new area and you're trying to time an attack against a new enemy that you're not sure what it is or how much damage it takes, it's hard to tell if you timed it right unless you specifically don't time a hit. And then next time try to time it and see what the difference is between the two. Like having that little visual indicator is very nice.
And only like a 10 or 15% damage buff that, if you don't really know what your baseline is, that could just be within the RNG roll of the damage or something.
Yeah, exactly. But they also have things on the other end of the spectrum where if you want something extremely challenging, which base game is hard, but one of the relics you can pick up, at least in the beta, was you lose 95% of your health.
Oh, you told me about this.
If you time your defenses correctly, though, you only take 1 damage.
Right.
But you have to be perfect, because
all the time.
If you're losing all of that health, if you lose all of your max HP that way, and you fuck up a block, that character goes down.
Right.
And if it's an AoE, your party goes down and you're dead.
Right. You're going to get one shot. Like, I was about to say even on defense, but like not even on defense, because you're not timing it well in that case. Yeah.
It's so there are easy ways to modify the difficulty to suit yourself, and they're available very early in the game. The ones to make the game easier are part of the tutorial, and then the ones that make it harder are within the first couple hours of the game. I think it was by my second stream.
Okay,
so 6 hours of the game.
So they give you tools very early on to make the game easier, which is probably a good decision based off of like...
I think it's a very good decision to make those available, but like I said, if you're looking for a challenging RPG, that is the way it ships. It ships difficult because going through one area, I had like 60 health and enemies were hitting me for 20. So if I pull a pack of 3 and they all hit the same character, that character just goes down.
Right.
Same way with you pull even more. So yeah, if you're looking for that kind of challenge, it's there, but combat is definitely extremely challenging in that game.
That makes me even more excited to eventually get around to playing it.
Yeah, I think you might like the base difficulty. I voluntarily I played a little bit as base, and then I went in and like used the items to tweak my stuff, and I'm happier for it because there's a bunch of stuff that I didn't realize it was doing. Like apparently when enemies are casting a spell, they have a defense boost that you don't get when you cast spells, but they get like 20% more defense while they're casting a spell. So you can't just hit them and just blow them up quick.
You have to rely on that interrupt mechanic to like knock them out of that, right?
True, and you do, and if you do that, they actually lose their turn completely.
Yeah.
Hi, Reforged. I see you over
Hey,
there.
what's up, Reforged?
But yeah, it's very good. It's very challenging. You had talked about, I had said something about like I know how the two games are connected now. I just got to an area where there's a giant, a literal golem that somebody made and then like empowered and awoke. And its entire job is to just hold up an island.
Okay.
And they're like, somebody did a prophecy, the whole world's gonna get flooded at some point. This one island needs to be above sea level, so we made this giant to hold this island at an exact specific elevation, and that's what it's doing.
And that's probably the island in the messenger.
I am certain of it because I was on there and running around on it, and that music sounded awfully familiar.
The music in the messenger is so good.
I didn't place it at the time.
Yeah.
But I do think it's like it probably is a track from the messenger. Let me see if I can find one of these to share with you from one of my VODs. To
It totally might be. I would expect the music in that game to be really good. What's the style? Are they going for like a 16-bit or like maybe early PlayStation era style of music?
Give me a second, I will find that for you because there's an area I got to. Here we are. All right. I'm gonna share this with you. You want to go to about 44 minutes in this.
Okay.
No, I don't want to share Baldur douche with you again. Why? There we go, because I didn't hit the right button.
I'll have to play this outside of Discord. Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, it's just a Twitch link. Because I haven't cut up that VOD. It's Saturday's one. But I get to one island, and the music starts playing. Immediately, I'm like, oh, I like this. Oh, this is good.
Yeah, I super loved the music in Messenger.
So
I think
it's the ice section from the messenger, like the ice part of the island. This is a bunch of cool, neat music there.
Said about 44 minutes in?
Yeah, about 44.
Let me make sure I'm not going to have this bleed over.
Thank you for that. I'll share with
Okay. That does sound kind of similar.
Yeah, like I think it's very similar to the messenger, and I loved the music in that section. Like, just in general, that music was amazing.
I believe it. I have no problems believing it. The music in the messenger was so good the entire time. It had the benefit of like adhering, because the messenger has the neat gimmick of like going back and forward in time, right? And so you go back and forward in between like 8-bit and 16-bit both graphically and audio style.
Mm-hmm.
And so every track is kind of 2 tracks. And some of the times I like the 8-bit track more. But yeah, all of it was very fitting and very strong, for sure.
Yeah, so it the music has been very good. I actually bought the soundtrack today.
Cool.
It's one of the things I got recently, and I'm looking forward to digging into that more. I was trying to catch up on some online videos that I am falling behind on. You started content creating like crazy last week with your double streams, and I was the busiest last week I've been in a long time, where like most days I had 2 to 4 things to do every day, and like some of them were interviews, so I was like prepping for it. And like getting dressed and like putting on a nice outfit and like suit or something sometimes. So I so far behind last week on everything. So
I feel that.
Yeah,
I feel that.
so,
I'm gonna be in the same situation pretty soon.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get some streams in. I don't know. I'd been streaming a bunch. I really should make shorts and clips. But I haven't touched that in my entire 2 years of streaming, which is not great. But it's still, I have been streaming more.
I'm starting to dabble a little bit. I worry I load too many clips and too many VODs, and it's not quite what I should be loading content-wise. You should probably, if you take like a look at my YouTube at some point to give me some feedback on what you think of some of the stuff. But that's an after stream talk. Let's go back to talking about Sea of Stars.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, it is. I'm pretty sure the island that I was on, the one being held up by the giant, to keep it away from the flood centuries from now, is the one for the messenger. So it is.
It makes perfect sense.
It is in the past. I even think I know which characters are going to be recurring in both of them, because I think there are going to be some characters that show up again in both games. Perhaps.
I haven't actually beat that game. And I would like to go back and finish it at some point, maybe soon, actually. But yeah, I know some characters who it could be, because there's definitely 3 or 4, I think 3 characters that have been around for a while and kind of dealing with the problem. But they're all like robed up in mage robes, and you can't see their faces, so it would be very convenient for just anyone from Sea of Stars to be one of those characters.
From what I saw, I don't think it's them.
The thing about, unless there's like a dragon or someone becomes a dragon, the only other characters are villains and the main character. Well, and like some people in the village, but none of them seemed timeless.
Yeah, definitely they're, and I'm kind of to the point in the game right now where I'm finding out how special my characters are, and I won't say how and why, but they not enough caffeine today. They do seem extra special, like more than human in a way that, because the whole time people are like just like, oh, you're incredibly powerful, you're this, you're that, and I'm finally starting to run into people who are like, no, this isn't just strong, this is something else.
Right. There's something very relevant to like the world and plot, which makes perfect sense for an RPG.
But I recently just got to an island with cloud giants on it and had one of my favorite interactions ever, which is there's a walkway I'm trying to run through, and there's a cloud giant standing on the walkway. And as you run past them, they lift up their one foot to let you run under them. And as you get to the other foot, they put the first one down and lift up the other foot so you can run through. And it is the silliest, dumbest thing, but I'm just like, oh, this is neat. I love this.
Yeah, no, that's a cool sense of scale.
But
that's pretty cool.
It is a fantastic game.
I love the aesthetic from what I've seen, and like, again, my experience with the Messenger gives me nothing but high hopes for Sea of Stars.
Yeah, the Messenger really captured like the Metroidvania Ninja Gaiden style of platformer that they were going for.
Yeah.
This one, you can tell they got their inspiration from Chrono Trigger and that genre of RPG, and it feels that way and it plays amazing. Like, and one example is you do get some tools to like help you solve puzzles, including a hook shot.
Okay.
There's like, I describe this. Like, there's a weight to like when you throw it and throw yourself with it, like when you haul yourself across the space.
Yeah.
That just looks and feels so good. Like, it's not like just the Zelda, like, oh, you know, pull myself across. You're just moving a character. Like, there's extra animation to the hook shot traversal that actually like simulates physics in a game that definitely doesn't have physics.
That definitely doesn't have physics. Yeah.
And it's so good.
That makes perfect sense to me because, like, again, with the messenger, it, like you said, it is a very good, like, it's not much of a Metroidvania, but it's like a Ninja Gaiden Vania. It's mostly influenced by Ninja Gaiden, but there's backtracking and you can kind of go anywhere. It's not just like constant progression. And there's a bunch of collectibles and stuff.
A lot of platforming too. So.
There's a lot of platforming, and that game has one of the best feeling grappling hooks I've ever seen in a platformer. So it makes sense that they would kind of redo that, even in a game that's a completely different genre and feel. So yeah, 2 games from those devs are really good at like borrowing ideas from classic games they loved, because I
think they do a good job of taking a classic game or taking a classic game genre and be like, let's distill this down to its fundamentals and build it back up in a modern retelling. And they do such a good job, and they're so clever with mechanics. Is like the messenger time travel ain't anything special, but jumping between the 16-bit version and the 64-bit version, the 32-bit version, that is such a clever. Or maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe it's 8 and 16.
It's
but
8
like
and
jumping
16.
Between.
It's very much like an NES and SNES feel.
Exactly. Yeah. So like they have it almost like jumping console generations with how they do it.
Yeah.
And that's so neat and so clever. And they didn't need to do that. They could have just designed it in one.
No, it's
just
like
retooled
double the dev time almost.
Yeah. So it's such fantastic dedication to quality that I am really excited for whatever else they come out with next.
Yeah.
I don't know what it'll be.
Yeah, I'm like they're either going to do something in the same vein where they're like, man, we really liked Ninja Gaiden, here's the messenger. Man, we really liked Chrono Trigger, and maybe, you know, with like the tools like the hookshot or what have you, Wild Arms or something else. So here's Sea of Stars, which is like even more quality from everything I've seen. So they're either going to do that again, and I don't know with what genre, or make something entirely original, and I'm looking forward to either.
Yeah, an original would be neat. I'm kind of wondering if they're going to do either like a turn-based RPG, a la like Final Fantasy, or if they're going to do because both the games are set in the same world, and I don't see a reason why they're going to step out of their own IP. But I'm almost wondering if they're going to do like a flat like RPG, a la like Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore, like that style of.
Oh, that would be
game.
Different. Yeah,
They could take that and build off of that.
A very early action RPG. Because Sea of Stars is turn-based, right?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So they could do something like a Secret of Mana or Secret of Evermore, for sure.
Yeah, because you're thinking of like the different types of games they could do. Because they wouldn't do like a racing game, not from what I've seen. They're not going to do like a flight simulator. I don't think they're going to do a fighting game.
They're not going to do an
shooter.
FPS. Yeah.
So, yeah, if they're going to keep it same world, if they're going to keep it same universe.
There were, like, shmup segments in the Messenger. They're very few and very basic. But they were welcome. They were well done for what they were. And kind of classic. They were almost like when a Kirby game did shmup stuff. Right? That was nowhere near the focus of the game, but it felt good. It was cool. Welcome back, Reforged. But yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to whatever they do next. They've done nothing but put out quality.
Pretty much, yeah. And there's just from Sea of Stars, like they're expanding the lore of that world, and like they, at least at the point I'm at, they're at the point where they're talking about the flood that will eventually create the situation from the messenger.
Right.
They don't really say why. So there's a game there, the flood happening and trying to stop the flood and maybe failing or maybe just getting people evacuated to the safety of the island.
I mean, I figure you'd fail to stop it in Sea of Stars. Like you'll resolve you'll resolve whatever the story there is, but like whatever they know about that's leading up to the flood just doesn't get addressed. Right?
So maybe, and that's maybe towards the end, because it's definitely going in a direction now that I don't think it's gonna interact with that really, because there were things that happened, and we're pursuing some goals. One interesting thing that happens is there are 3 oracles in the game. You meet the first one at the very beginning, and it gives each of your characters a prophecy. At which point, there's only 3 of them at that point. And then you get to a second oracle later who gives one of your characters a new prophecy, and basically tells the other 2, main story quest related stuff, but also kind of chides them for not succeeding at their initial prophecies, because they should have been able to do it by this point, but they haven't. And then you get to the third one, who takes a look at your, people running around at this point trying to save the world, and is just like, yeah, I'm not giving you prophecies. I don't give a shit. I deal with the big picture problems. And then walks by your last character that joined the party, takes a step back, turns, looks at him, and goes, "Oh shit. Oh shit, it's you. Oh, I got a book in my house. Come inside, everybody." And they dig through it and find one prophecy for them that they had years ago and wrote down, and tell them that, and then just basically say like, "Okay, yeah, you can hang out here and do whatever. I've done what I meant to do by telling him that one thing." So like, your party trying to save the world gets nothing. Like, one guy shows up and she's like, you'll like the pears from my pear tree. You get to have a pear. And he eats one. He's just like, "You're right. These are great pears." And she's like, "Yeah, that's the great thing about being a prophet. You know who's going to appreciate your pears." And she's just strange and weird. Reforged. Difficulty is really high at base. I would put it at like an 8. And then, but there are tools in the game that can lower it down to something at a much more manageable level of like maybe a 3 or a 4, depending on how you want to tweak stuff. So,
I haven't played a really hard turn-based RPG in a while, so I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably pick it up at some point.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to you playing this, because I think you're going to really like it, and I can't wait to hear you talk my ear off about like, "Oh, but this is so good." I'm like, "I know, right?"
Yeah.
This is so good. I just got to this point. I'm like, "Oh, I know what's coming. I know what's coming." You ain't ready for what's coming.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's looking up stuff about the messenger though. I'm like, "Oh, okay. So this is. I think I know some of what's gonna happen with some of these characters."
Yeah, you should look into. I forget what they're called. You should look into the people in the Tower of Time, because that sounds like the prophets you just described, especially that third one.
So I definitely looked up some stuff, because there is one character that I'm like, who is this person? They seem like they would be in your game and be a big deal, and I did not see them mentioned by name.
Well, so, I don't think the people in the Tower of the Time are ever mentioned, like ever reveal their names.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm making a noise because in my stream on Saturday, maybe it was Sunday, we ran across time shards.
Okay.
Which now they just mentioned here, and I'm looking here like, he makes toys that Ninja can purchase with time shards. Like, oh,
yeah,
time shards, you say? So that was a reference I didn't get.
Yeah. Those are all over the place in the messenger. You get them all the time.
I wonder how they got there.
Yeah.
Because they were a very specific thing in Sea of Stars, and they went and did a very specific thing. And They are definitely not all over the place at this point.
They are so everywhere. I think you just get them for killing regular enemies, and they're kind of your like upgrade currency in Messenger.
That might explain why that one character that I expected to be in the Messenger isn't there. I don't know if they make it.
Sure.
Because there is a person who is old enough and aged enough that I'm like, no, they might actually make it and live that long. I don't know.
Anyway, game good.
Game extremely good. My God.
Yeah, I'm super looking forward to checking it out for like a bunch of reasons. Everything they showed off, because I was following the devs on Twitter for a long time, even before I played the Messenger. They started putting out stuff for Sea of Stars, and it just looks fantastic.
Yeah, it does. It's some of the most beautiful like digital artwork in that style I've seen in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the audio's great. The combat feels amazing. Even when it's hard, like it still feels good. Like I was seeing somebody talk about it, and they said, stop looking at combat as like a just smash your face against it. Look at combat like a puzzle all of its own.
Yeah,
like,
that's what it sounds like.
You need to use resources to drop enemies quickly, but if you don't have those resources available, then you can't counter their spells, which are strong enough to one-shot you.
Right.
So you really need to be like smart and clever how you tackle encounters, just at a foundational level. You cannot, under the standard difficulty, you cannot just smack your face into it to kill them. It will not work. You will suffer and you will die.
Well, that's what's attractive, because like a lot of the easier Final Fantasy games, and even some of the more difficult ones, you can just like level enough to do nothing but select the fight option and win the whole way through. And yeah, exactly what Reforged just said. I like a twist on that RPG playstyle, where like you have to really think about what you're doing. Or maybe even a better comparison is like Darkest Dungeon. Is both of those games are really good about making you think about every action. And you can kind of get to a point where you know exactly what you do in Darkest Dungeon and like what works against what enemies, but you still can't just like attack, whatever your basic stuff is, and expect to get through. Because the game is built to defeat that and throw mechanics at you that you have to deal with in very specific ways. Which is cool and good. I like that. I like that a lot. And I want to see that in a good RPG, for sure. I
think you'll find it in this. I really do.
Yeah, it sounds like I will.
So going from one difficult game, do we want to jump to another, and you can tell us a bit about Lies of P?
I was actually going to go with Blasphemous first.
Blasphemous works. We can go pixel to pixel.
Yeah, exactly. Blasphemous also has really, really fantastic music and art and graphics, and it's kind of difficult, and it plays super well. Like, that's the first Blasphemous game was amazing, and a lot of people's like favorite game for when it came out. The pixel art in both of them is just stellar. In fact, like, I think you were there. I had a conversation with a viewer who is not so hot on like various types of modern pixel art. Hello, Superhero.
Oh yeah. I was there that night.
Yeah, and the I think either after that or maybe around the next stream, just before the next stream, I saw that the devs of Blasphemous put out like some behind the scenes video, and one of them was talking about just like making a bunch of their art. And the first game was all pixel art the whole time. All of their cutscenes were pixel art. And they decided to go with like a kind of 3D animated, high quality 2D kind of like it almost looks like the Netflix Castlevania series. Maybe not quite as detailed, but all of their cutscenes in Blasphemous 2 are like a nice 3D animated 2D cartoon look. And they decided to go with that because it was much easier and quicker to do than doing all of their cutscenes in pixel art again, because they were more time consuming and more detailed.
So if you don't mind me taking a bit of an aside, I actually saw something on social media today that I'll send over to you because it's a bit relevant to this. Because talking about like designing stuff and how easy and hard it is. Twitter account Good Old Pixel, which I just sent you a link for, and I'll put it in your thing if you allow links.
I don't know if I do, but I think I can post them.
It hasn't yelled at me yet, but
yeah, go ahead and try it.
Yeah. But they are doing some game dev for a game that looks very similar to Breath of Fire 3, and they're very clear, like that's their inspiration for this. So I'm following them like crazy.
Oh yeah, Tears of Magic.
Yeah, they were talking about like how they do shadows in their game, and essentially the monsters are bigger than what's on the screen, and they actually put part of them through the ground, and they're like showing how they're doing that to like make it look good. And it's neat.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that. That's also like, this is a very kind of Xenogears approach in that they have clearly a 3D world, but everything is done like all the characters are sprites, and all the enemies are going to be sprites, and all the environment kind of has like a Mega Man Legends look to it almost, although way more high quality. Yeah, I love shit like that. I've seen that before, Tears of Magic, specifically because they were talking
probably
about
shared it with you, yeah.
Maybe specifically because they were talking about like being heavily inspired by Breath of Fire, which is nice. You may have. That may have been where I heard about it. But yeah, Blasphemous 2 is utterly fantastic the whole way through. It's beautiful. It's clearly Souls inspired like the first one was. But Blasphemous 2 is more of a Metroidvania than the first one. The Blasphemous 1 was a little bit more linear. You still had a lot of backtracking for like collectibles and things. And there were there's a lot more movement options in Blasphemous 2. Whereas in the first one, you would like unlock a tool that made platforms appear where they weren't previously. And you couldn't select where they happened. They were like preset in the world. They just wouldn't appear or activate until you collected a thing, right? In Blasphemous 2, like, I got a double jump, which I was not suspecting at all. And then I got an air dash, which I was not suspecting at all. And you have, like, Mega Man X style wall climbing, but only on certain surfaces. So they really evolved the way that game plays.
Well,
kind of in a way I didn't expect.
I think I want to chime in on because I saw you talking about it on one of your streams. You actually pick your starting weapon, and depending on the weapon you pick, it determines where you can go early game, because you have to unlock certain areas with certain weapons. And if you don't have the right weapon, you can't get past like certain things. So if you start the game with the hook shot, to give like an easy reference, you can only get to the areas that require hookshot for access. If you start with bombs, you can get to the bomb areas, but you can't get to the hookshot areas.
That's exactly how it works. You get a choice of 3 weapons in the beginning, and one is a sword that plays very much like the initial weapon of or the only weapon in Blasphemous 1. And so that's kind of what I went with. They work like as a key. And so the sword gets a parry, but it also gets a move where you like do a ground pound. Essentially, you do a big stab into the ground, and it has actually like an AoE explosion that goes off of it, and you can use that to break through like what are essentially like tree or vine limbs that are made of people and
living barriers
that you can cut your way through, but only if you have enough height. Because you can do like a big version of the ground pound if you have enough height, which is easier with double jump later on. So that kind of doubles up on what that weapon can open up. But you can also choose like a pair of rapiers that are really neat. They build up like an electric charge the more you hit, except they lose it if you get hit. So you have to be really good to like do a lot of damage with that weapon. But also you'll find various like floating statues of like angels holding mirrors, and if you strike them with your electric rapiers, you teleport a short distance in the direction they're pointing the mirror. And so there's a bunch of puzzles that are built around that, and you could start the game with that and not have the sword. You also can choose, like, it's basically a big mace, but it's modeled after like a priest's incense censer, right? And you can use that to thwack bells that then send out a vibration and cause certain platforms to materialize. So you can start with any one of those 3 weapons, and that determines what order you can open up other things, which is really neat. And then, of course, there's 2 locations where you can find the 2 weapons that you didn't pick later on. You will eventually, you have to get all 3.
Yeah.
And so the game does a much better job of like being a Metroidvania rather than like, this is a Metroidvania, but it's mostly a Castlevania type of game. I recently opened up, you'll find like Castlevania style fast travel, and then if you find enough of like a side character, there's like a very weird looking sister who's like a 15-foot tall nun, except all you can see is a red eye behind her robes. And she asks you to go look for her sisters. And as you collect sisters, you open up various mechanics. And I think the first 2 are like the places what are essentially like Dark Souls bonfires or Elden Ring sites of grace. You unlock the ability to like fast travel back to the initial town, and then you unlock the ability to like also regen your magic whenever you rest instead of just your health and your potions. And then you unlock the ability to travel from any of those to any other of those. So like your fast travel explodes, and suddenly backtracking is the easiest thing ever.
Yeah, trivializes it.
Yeah, it's super good. The quality of life improvements in Blasphemous 2, like just the way they expanded the gameplay, already great with the 3 different weapons. 2 of them can parry, 1 of them is like way heavier, and it's slower, but it does more damage, and it can stun things easier. So you can sacrifice a parry for that play style.
Well, also just like hearing you talk about this with like these one batch of collectibles in the game opens up things that eventually opens up fast travel. Then you're looking for other, you find this first weapon and then it opens up the area. So you find a second weapon, it opens up the area. Both of those just kind of really passively encourage searching for everything, because you don't know what thing will unlock what, because you start just collecting those sisters and it's not that big a deal. You don't expect it to open up fast travel, and then it does, and you're just like, holy shit, this is amazing.
Right. When they tell you to go collect sisters,
what other mini quests do.
Yeah, when they tell you to go collect sisters, they don't tell you what your rewards are going to be whatsoever. It's just a very like, this is a weird looking character and they want me to go collect their sisters. Okay, I guess if I find them, sure. But yeah, the way that they expanded that game lets it be way more of a Metroidvania, and it's super good the whole way through. I'm thoroughly loving it. I played for 6 hours yesterday, and like I remember looking at the clock and then being 3 hours in and being like, all right, I guess I've been backtracking a bunch. Maybe we should go do like the main thing, because I just opened up what looks like the entrance to kind of the final area, but there's definitely more that I haven't touched yet. And then I went to kind of go do that and do some other side stuff, because I got a couple of new abilities and I could go back to some places that I went to earlier in the stream. And then I looked at the clock and I'd been playing for 6 hours. Like it's just really super quality the whole way through. Both of the games are heavily inspired by like the Spanish Inquisition and like that old school Catholicism. The first game was memeified and known as Catholic Guilt, the game.
Yeah, I've heard you say that in stream a few times.
It's kind of funny, because like in the first game, there's this overarching thing called the Miracle, which is like their background world builder setting thing. It's the impetus for why everything is the way it is. And in the first game, it was mentioned all the time. Everybody you ran into was having like their faith, but also their guilt physically manifest and overtake them in like really horrible ways. And so it's like, I'm talking like this game like it's super great. If you don't like bloody, gory stuff, maybe don't play Blasphemous.
Yeah.
Because it's wild. The miracle is mentioned less in this one, but it's definitely still a thing and obviously around and doing things. The backstory that I've uncovered made it sound like the first game happened probably quite a long time ago, and the miracle kind of went away after the end of that, which makes sense, and then started to come back, and that's the driving force, the kickoff point for Blasphemous 2. The miracle is mentioned a lot less in this one, which honestly I really like, because it got a little repetitive in the first one. Whereas this one, it's just as rich of a world and full of cool, interesting things, without having to like really hammer home what this setting is all about every 15 minutes. But you still find people, like there's a main hub city, and people in there seem to be doing fine, kind of better off than the first game, but there's still like weirdo characters that are warped by their faith. And you still find I think the best example of this is, I know you saw a little bit of this. I don't know if you saw the most recent incarnation, which only happened last stream. There's a person you can take various different items to that will either like increase your health, or increase your healing flasks, or increase the potency of your healing flasks, which function very much like Estus flasks from Dark Souls, or I forget what they're called in Elden Ring, but the same thing.
Yeah.
And she begins by talking about like the beauty of the miracle of her blood and bones, and she just looks kind of like a very plainly common woman, except she's giant. She takes up like
this lady.
She takes up like the whole screen, but you only see her from like waist up. And so the more, and she's got like, when you first meet her, you're confused about her. Yeah. When you first meet her, she's got like little cherubims that are like inspecting her arms and kind of tugging at her clothes. And after you give her so many items, you come back and they've like pulled the skin off of her hand. And then you give her more and you come back and they've pulled the skin like down to the elbow. And then I finally gave her more, and the very next step is like her whole upper torso has been flayed off. It's gruesome, but she loves it. That's what she's here for. She's not in pain. Well, I mean, maybe she is, but she's fine with it. The like blessed part of her is her blood and bones, and so she wants to get down to the beauty of that. And the little cherubim are helping her. The more you help her, and it's like they do such a good job with the art style. Just mostly all pixel art, even though the cutscenes have been fantastic. So like everything that was there in the first game is still there. And then they've just done a really fantastic job through like the weapons and the art and how they've built the world. The more Metroidvania-ish feel of it. All the different like tiny little quality of life expansions. It's fantastic. I love it. The music is also thoroughly amazing. It's kind of the same as the first one, but there's a lot of like Spanish guitar and going back and forth in between cool Spanish guitar for like some settings and more like organ focused stuff for more regal church settings. If anyone is looking for a Metroidvania game to play, especially if they like the aesthetic of FromSoft's fantasy stuff, I can't recommend Blasphemous 2 highly enough. And the first one. Totally play the first one first. You can probably get it pretty cheaply right now, too.
I have not played either of them. I probably should fix that. You probably consider it a blasphemy that I haven't.
I mean, I don't know if they're up your alley. They don't like try to be. They're not like a gore fest. right? They don't try to be like a slasher film, but wow, is there a lot of blood? Like a lot.
That doesn't bother me. Like,
Yeah, okay. I think you get like Punisher finisher attacks in both games, definitely in this one. And they're all like, did you ever play like Splatterhouse back on the Sega?
well, no, I haven't, but I was thinking of like what you're talking about, like bloody games and lots of finishers. And I'm just thinking like, man, this is a good transition for Evil West.
Yeah, you know what? It probably is. I've said enough about Blasphemous 2. It's fantastic. Go play it. Let's hear about Evil West. Because I was thinking about playing that at one point too.
Yeah, so I just started this past week. That was my Wednesday game, and I will be playing it again tomorrow because I wanted to try and see if I can get through it in Spooky Month.
Sure.
So you are in the Wild West with some definite steampunk elements added in, but you are basically fighting vampires. You are part of an organization that either is connected to the Department of War or working for the Department of War. They have some ties to the U.S. government, and they just develop and implement vampire slaying. Like they develop tools for slaying vampires, and then they specifically like just go and kill them. And these are it's hard to specify based on the little bit I've seen, because I've only played it for like 3 or 4 hours. But there seem to be different types of vampires. There are definitely the like servitors that are just kind of deformed creatures. There are definitely ones that have made the change successfully, and they look like the standard, like, I am a human with fangs, maybe pointy ears, and I don't like the sun. But then they're also like they call them, what do they call them, like elders or nobles or something like that, and they are full on like Chiroptera giant bat people throwing blood magic at you.
Okay, cool.
And they are all wildly different in like how they play, how they fight, how strong they are. And one of the major plot points from just like getting through the introduction section is one vampire is just basically like, humans are getting better at us, and they're getting better at a rate that we can't ignore. And eventually there will come a day when we are subservient to them, and we cannot allow that to happen. So I'm going to do something unforgivable and start fucking around with vampire genetics to try and progress us at a rate similar to humans, so we can stay one step ahead. And as he explains his plan, you walk into the end of it, him explaining his plan to other vampires, they're like, no, fuck no, this is full-on blasphemy. We're killing you and your entire line.
Don't mess with our genetics. We're regal.
And also, this is like genetic engineering and like the Wild West. So this is just full on like eugenics, like inbreeding stuff or fucking with it in a weird way. Like this is Leech's level of medicine.
Sounds like Daybreakers. I haven't seen
that. Might be. That sounds vaguely familiar. I think I've heard of that. But definitely, like, yeah, as you're fighting stuff, it's very Doom in that, like, when you knock enemies low HP, they're flashing like orange. When you melee them, you will do a finisher that recovers health.
I do love a good low health enemy flashing some color. That's a classic thing.
Yeah, like one of the enemies you're fighting early on are these like big hulking brutes that are like cannibals that align with the vampires, and they're just kind of heavies. And they like your finisher for them is like when you knock them low, you take their heavy weapon and just hit them in the head with it so hard their head just collapses and they die.
There's a lot of that in Blasphemous. there's
I think I have seen Daybreakers then or heard of it, because vampires farming humans and the scientist becomes human after some experiments. I think I've heard of that. I don't remember it very well, but it is ringing a bell. Reforged.
I did see during the like 10 minutes or so that I caught part of your stream, there was a reference to I was about to say Dead by Daylight. That's totally not it. There's a famous vampire movie with like George Clooney and Danny Trejo.
Dawn of the Dead.
No,
Or
no.
no. Yeah.
Dead by
Oh, fuck
Dawn.
yeah, it's Dead by Daylight.
I think
No,
it's,
that's
I think it's Dead by Dawn, or
oh, fuck,
From
it's
Dusk
gonna
Till
bother.
Dawn. From Dusk Till
Dust Till
Dawn.
Dawn. Yes.
Yeah.
And you were right, because I was just like, yeah, that's a good reference. And you're just like, oh no, that was the chapter note. And yes, it was from Dust to Dawn. It was a vampire movie reference.
So I think Evil West might contain like a lot of different references, little cheeky nods to their influences of a bunch of different like vampire movies from over the years, or even other vampire media. So
Yeah, probably.
those people might be aware of Daybreakers. You also have the classic like some Dracula stuff paints him as like a big scientist guy. He had,
True.
you know, his lab doing experiments. So there's definitely precedent for stuff like that.
Yeah, agreed. But so I've found a lot of combat, and like your basic like reusable attack is very physical. You are just boxing them. You have a glove. You have this gauntlet on your one arm that has, it's basically like, almost like brass knuckles, but you have knives on the end of it, and you're just punching them a lot of time. You have a pistol. It doesn't do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
You have a rifle. It doesn't do a lot of damage. That's actually more for like precise shooting, because enemies have like a timing mechanic where, because they have like actual like Renfield type familiars that'll pull pistols on you and then try and shoot you. And if you shoot them at the right time as they're trying to shoot, you end up blowing off their arm and they die.
Okay, so that sounds like it's kind of in between Remnant and Bloodborne, because Remnant was far more focused on guns, but so the gameplay looks like very Remnant styled, except melee focused instead. But Bloodborne was all about like you don't have any shields or defenses, but you can shoot things to stagger them and then get big offense afterwards. You
do have a stagger mechanic. I will say the controls are terrible for keyboard and mouse. Like, this game should be keyboard and mouse
That's
friendly.
expected.
It's not. It is controller good.
Yeah.
And even that's a little bit rough, because there's definitely like an interrupt button, but it's like R3. It's pressing the right control stick. You
That's
just
odd.
full on just bring up your leg and just kick them, and that'll interrupt what they're doing.
That's a little odd. Yeah.
Yeah, the
But
controller scheme isn't great.
It definitely looks like a game. Most games that play like that, well, a lot of games that play like that, I would immediately default to a controller. And I used to be like a snob.
I did not make it 10 minutes into this game on keyboard and mouse.
Yeah. I used to be a snob about keyboard and mouse, but like, I forget what changed my mind, but definitely by the time Dark Souls came out, I was like, yeah, why would you even try to play something like this with a keyboard and mouse? Just don't do it. Controller is clearly superior here. And Evil West looks like it does like I haven't touched it. Deus has. It looks pretty cool. It looks like the combat and everything else flows pretty well if you get used to the controls.
Graphically, it looks amazing. Entertainingly enough, I was looking at like cleaning up some hard disk space on my computer recently. I'm looking at storage. Evil West is taking the second most amount of storage space on my computer from Steam games right now.
Really?
Behind only Armored Core. Armored Core is 60 gigs roughly of storage, and Evil West is like 33 and change. So it's half an Armored Core, but it also came out last year.
Yeah, it's been out for a little while. It looks really good. I've seen one other person play it on stream like several months ago, and I think they ran into some glitches where like some stuff wasn't, some like background skybox stuff wasn't loading right, so it only got the low res way in the distance loading.
Yeah, that they definitely fixed that, because I do not notice that now.
Okay, cool. That's good to hear. Because that's another one that I'm thinking about touching eventually at some point. Yeah, that's not that big, like Reforged points out. Some games, a lot of like AAA games are huge. I think the biggest games that I've had on my PC recently have been Baldur's Gate.
Like Elden Ring and Monster Hunter are the two that would come to mind for me.
Monster Hunter is close. Elden Ring is up there. I wasn't even thinking about that, but Elden Ring is up there. It's probably like 90 or 100 or something like that. It's large. Baldur's Gate is
think-
like 120.
Oh Jesus!
It's gigantic. It's the biggest game I've had in a really long time. You've also got like Call of Duties and what else have you that are, I think, around like 100. Destiny 2 is like 110. That makes sense at this point. They keep adding to that game. Man, those games feel great, but I stopped playing them. And yeah, so like I bet you modern Assassin's Creeds are also up there. What was it? FF7 Remake, especially with Integrate, the Yuffie DLC, I want to say it was at least like 100 gigs. It may have been like 75 base game. But so yeah, some are pretty large. Armored Core and Evo West being like 60 or 35 is significant, but not huge.
Yeah, I will say I was surprised at how quickly the list like dwindled down, because I think Hades, which is not like a graphically intensive game,
despite looking fantastic.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. It was not graphically intensive. That one's like 5 or 6 in the list, but that's also like around 10 or 12.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So, yeah, it's a big game, and it's got a lot of really good textures, especially at the highest settings. But I don't know. I'm.
Yeah, I think kind of 60 gigs. I think 60 gigs is kind of like the standard medium now.
It depends on what you're trying to do. Yeah, but Evil West, I would say, doesn't. I don't know if I'd call it AAA, but it's definitely trying to get closer to that than a lot of other games.
Yeah,
because Hades, despite being a fantastic game, is not even trying to be AAA. It just pulls up its mechanics well enough that it can compete against games like that.
Yeah. Well, Hades, Darkest Dungeon, Blasphemous, Sea of Stars, they're really high quality without trying to be like. They're not even thinking about being Horizon.
They're not trying to make the graphics so good to make you not notice all the other problems in the game like some stuff tries to do.
They're not trying to be the new Hitman. They're not trying to be the new Assassin's Creed. They're not trying to be the new Assassin's Dawn. They're not trying to be the new God of War.
Cyberpunk.
They're not trying to be Cyberpunk, which I might pick up that DLC.
I've been seeing a lot of people play that.
Yeah, I've been seeing nothing but positive stuff about it. Even like the new Street Fighter, I want to say, is like 40 maybe.
Wait, the new Street Fighter that you're playing that has like the really crazy graphics and the open world section?
Yeah. It can't.
How is that only 40?
It can't be. Well, the open world stuff is not as huge as it sounds. There's like one city and then a bunch of smaller side stuff for specific characters. It can't be more than 80. I almost want to say it's under 60. And yeah, it looks really good and is going for high quality 3D models, everything running at 60. The backgrounds are all 3D and look fantastic. You do have like a small open world. I wouldn't even call it open world, but you do have like a small city you can kind of freely run around in with a lot of different stuff to do in it, and like a bunch of, it's populated like almost like a New York.
Nice.
But yeah, it depends, you know? Like if you were like the next what are they called? The next Uncharted will probably be very large.
That makes sense.
The next Call of Duty will probably be very, very large. But if you're going for something like a fucking pixel Metroidvania or RPG, even if they're like high res but still pixel and look fantastic, you're going like Hades 2 will probably also be like 10 or 15 gigs max.
Maybe 20 at the worst case scenario.
Maybe it depends on how much work they put into it.
I'm actually surprised Sea of Stars isn't higher, because there are 100%, which is the thing I forgot to mention earlier. There are actually like animated scenes in it.
Yeah, there's animated scenes in Blasphemous. I think it's like maybe 30 gigs.
Yeah,
maybe.
But it's they've done it a surprising number of times. Where like, 'cause I was almost expecting like the first time it happened, like, oh, this is really cool, but it's probably going to taper off like Xenogears did. And like, no, they keep doing it. Like when something interesting happens, like they'll have a really important character appear the first time, and you'll get a scene, or like the big conflict explodes, and the inciting incident happens for the big quest. Like there's an animated sequence. It's not huge. It's not like
so kind of like you made the comparison earlier, kind of like Lunar. Really, there are a bunch of animated cutscenes in that. Or Lunar 2.
I don't remember that too well. I really ought to replay that on the stream one of these times.
Lunar 2 is so good. That was one of my favorite like PlayStation era RPGs.
Mm-hmm. I thought Lunar 2 was
it was like originally
Sega Saturn, but then they ported it over to like PlayStation.
Yeah, it's Lunar 2 and then like Lunar 2 the second Star Story or whatever it's called. Or Silver Star Story?
Lunar, Silver Star Story, and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. And they did, Lunar 2 Eternal Blue, I remember. But they did, and I bought
maybe I'm thinking of the first one.
Like a double combo of both games put together, which is what I have.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you have them, those are pretty good. The first one, I forget.
Yeah.
I think I played Silver Star Story, which was maybe the first one.
Silver Star, I think, is the first one, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I played the PlayStation version of that, and it's great, and has like a pretty good amount of anime cutscenes for stuff exactly like you were just talking about. You come to a new location, and here's a new main character. They get an animated intro. Big story stuff happens. There's an animated intro. Your people go to a hot bath spring. Here's an anime scene.
Yeah, I remember those from Lunar. That's kind of part of why I haven't been playing it on stream.
I don't remember anything that would get you banned, but I could be wrong. It's been a long fucking time.
They've toned it down, but I do remember there being like a collectible game where you could get these photos and look at them, and a lot of them were ecchi. Which at the time, as a teenager, I loved. Or a teenager, young 20s, something I loved.
I think ecchi is probably the right term.
Now as a streamer, I'm like, maybe I don't want to have that.
You might want to look into it first.
On stream, yeah.
Yeah, you might want to look into it first. I think the PlayStation one like toned it down and edited it, and it may have been worse on Sega CD.
Maybe.
Anyway,
Evil Dead. I've only played it one time. Damn it! I said earlier I'm gonna get the name wrong.
Evil Dead's great, but it's not the same thing.
I think I maybe even said that to you, and you're like, "Oh, you're playing Evil Dead." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I called it the wrong thing. Shit."
Yeah, that'll happen.
But no, I've done a couple missions so far. Where like I had like the tutorial. We had the big exciting incident happen, which is its own mission. Then we get to new hub area and go off to do a mission from that to like find a guy that's like their best researcher or something. And we come back, and they keep coming back to like this whole thing of like my character has this glove, and like during the inciting incident he uses some power on it to like go like basically limit break and kind of like use lightning to jump around and just instantly one-shot vampires, just one after another. Small ones, not major ones.
So like Spartan Ridge.
Maybe like this is essentially him triggering this, and he charges at an enemy as with like lightning trailing behind him, punches it once and it dies. Then he goes next. I was just tapping the button in that scene from Melee, and he was just melee dead. And it's not like guys that are next to each other. Like he'll go to one and then he'll jump 5 feet to the next one, 10 feet to the one after that, 5 feet to the one next to it, 20 feet to the next batch of guys there.
Okay.
And it's like you're really zipping around and just insta-giving these things.
Okay. That sounds a lot less like Remnant in that case, because that's the game that I would compare Evil West's like combat to the most before ever touching it. But after seeing you play it and like hearing about it, not so much.
Well, you do that one time, and the plot after that has essentially been, we need to get this gauntlet fixed or we're dead. Like,
okay.
This is something that we're gonna need, and it's not working now because I used it the one time and it broke right after.
Right. They show you sicko mode and then it breaks.
Yeah, and then you have to earn it back. So this is essentially like a limit break.
Okay.
Thinking of it as like Clive's limit break from 16 is a good way to look at it. Like you just get this crazy power boost and just wreck everything. Which will be nice because definitely like fighting those elder vampires alone is challenging.
Good.
And it is challenging even in normal mode because they're like, this is the difficulty we built the game to have, and I have died a couple times already.
Good.
Even in relatively early missions, but I think that's all the further I've gotten is like 3 or 4 missions.
Do you know how big the game is? Like how many missions there are total?
That's actually a great thing to look up right now. That's how long it'll take me to complete it.
Yeah, because I keep comparing it to Remnant, which is maybe like a bad comparison actually, but those games were not very long. They were also randomized.
That's interesting. While focusing on the main objectives, Eva West is about 11 hours in length.
Oh, it's pretty short then.
All aspects, it's going to be 18 and a half to attain 100% completion.
Wow, it's pretty short then.
Because definitely, like, each level does have collectibles that you can go for and try and pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And they sorry, distracted for a moment. You have these collectibles, and if you miss them, you can go back and redo the level and find them again.
Oh, that's always nice.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a really nice feature because they'll specifically tell you like, because you won't see it when you go in and do the level, but when you're done, it will specifically say like, okay, there were 5 gold deposits, you got 3 of them. There's 2 more you didn't get,
Mm-hmm.
and you can replay the level to try and get them. You do have a skill tree, which I did mention this. You have a skill tree. Money is how you buy your skills. You just use.
Sure.
Well, actually, no. You gain skill points from your level, but you also have other things you can unlock with money, and just purchase upgrades.
So you've got like a couple of different skill trees, or you unlock like your skill tree and then upgrade it with money.
No. So the skill tree is definitely level based because there is like, what's a good example?
When you say you have like a skill tree and upgrades and they're totally separate from each other.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Like,
yeah,
where you upgrade like specific weapons because one example was I bought an upgrade for my pistols that gives it 1 extra shot before you have to reload. Which also, game has infinite ammo, which I'm loving. They really just want you to go to that hyper violence and not have to worry about.
Right, they want you to be in the combat,
yeah.
like the whole time, by the look of it.
Exactly. So they have that. So like the one skill I got was just you have 1 extra bullet, so that's 1 more round you can fire before you reload. Doesn't say about taking longer to reload. So it's just you get more damage, and you can hold the button down to like fan the gun and just fire like at a regular pace, or you could tap it quickly and empty it faster on your own hand.
That's cool and good.
But for like skills, like one of them is your kick, which is your counter to like interrupt.
Right.
But also like you have like a flying hero punch where like you press a dodge and then forward on the control stick and then also melee, and you just jump out the air and just punch them in the throat. But the
both of those things are very Dark Souls.
The skill tree upgrade gives that a small AoE knockback to enemies around that one. So if you jump at a group of enemies and hit them with that, it'll actually push all of them back and stagger them all a little bit. And you can just keep using that move over and over again to just push them around.
Okay.
But one of my favorite things has actually been like they specifically train you and tell you you can use environmental things to help and to kill stuff. So like, what do they have? Dynamite. Like they'll have like stacks of dynamite, and you can come in on an enemy, uppercut them into the air, and then punch them into the dynamite. The vampire just blows up.
Okay.
They just full on explode.
That's cool.
So there's a little bit of that. So it's this cartoonish level of violence.
Well, it's got a lot of style to it, from what I'm hearing.
It reminds me more of like a Bulletstorm, if you've ever played that.
I don't think I did actually.
I don't think it's on Steam. Let me check that because I'm curious about that. If it is on Steam, I would not mind playing that.
That's definitely a name I've heard a lot over the years.
It is on Steam. Ooh, I am adding that to my wish list.
It's definitely a name I've heard a lot over the years.
Yeah, that was a really stylized shooter game that was a lot of fun to play.
Okay.
I got it off of Amazon, and then, like, yeah.
Yeah,
Reforged remembers. He knows what I'm talking about. Bulletstorm is great.
Yeah, I want to say that game's been around for a while, but I've never touched it. I've definitely heard people hype it up every once in a while, though. Definitely over years.
Yeah, it's fairly short, but it has a lot of fun mechanics to it.
Okay. That's fine. There's a lot of good games like that. Like God Hand was not a big game, but wow, did it do a ton for action games, for character action games.
Yeah, I think my favorite tool in Bulletstorm was, way do your characters have gravity boots that they're just using to like adhere to like ships when they walk around, but you fully have it as a skill to just lean back and kick people, so it'll knock them back through the air, but because you hit them with gravity boots, it actually like distorts them and kind of slows them down, so you can knock them back and then just slowly like aim up a shot and shoot them in the head. Like, it'll fuck with their time.
Nice.
So it's very good. So yeah, this is kind of like a vampire hunting Bulletstorm in terms of like its cartoonish levels of violence, but it's very fun.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it definitely looked like it has like a more realistic and gritty visual style, but also didn't always take itself super seriously in the way combat and everything else was animated.
No, it's steampunk fighting vampires in the Wild West.
Yeah.
And by fighting vampires, we don't mean using a gun like a normal person. Instead, no, you just punch them.
Right.
You're boxing vampires, even though that makes no sense, but it works.
I mean, that's fun and cool.
Yep.
I do love to punch mans in video games. Well, I've only got one game left to talk about, really.
Yeah, how do you transition over to that from spooky vampire, ultra violent vampire game? How do you transition to the last game you haven't spoken to about from a game with spooky monsters and ultra violence? How possibly?
Well, I haven't run into anything vampiric in Lies of P. But it did, like, the Bloodborne started happening. So there is that. There's definite monsters in Lies of P. That game is pretty great so far. It's like, I mean, I think I had more trouble with that demo than you did, if I remember correctly.
I think so, but I had the advantage of watching your playthrough first, so I knew some of what to expect, and you went in completely blind. Yeah,
I was going completely blind. That game's more difficult than I thought it was going to be. It's super good so far. Everybody was very rightly comparing it to Bloodborne. It's very much like Bloodborne Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, this is one of the reasons I love video games. When are you going to hear, like, the combination of it's gothic horror Pinocchio, and it's really good.
I mean, honestly, my favorite thing about it is just after years, we finally got a Bloodborne game on PC. It's not by FromSoft, but that's fine.
It's not.
This studio did its own shit instead.
Well, and it's almost like there is a lot of Bloodborne there. That's undeniable. It's almost more Sekiro. Except there's still a lot of, like, Sekiro was really, really fast, right? And was all focused on, like, parrying people with precise enough timing frequently enough to break their stagger. Lies of P has the weight of a Souls game, kind of no matter what build you go with, and there are thankfully different builds, which is very much not Sekiro, but it is focused. Like, there's regular trash enemies which still do like a ton of damage, and then there's like mini bosses and bosses, and the focus there is on like parrying them and breaking their stamina. You can dodge a lot of stuff and do just enough regular hits, to wear their stamina down and stagger them, and then you get big damage, and you can kind of wail on them a little bit while they're recovering for even more damage. You can even do that like before your big damage attack after they're staggered. But it seems to be focused on like a lot of the stuff you're fighting is much bigger and much meaner than you. So you need to like precisely perfect block this shit in order to really stagger them and get your damage in. I've seen people talk about like I'm basically not parrying at all and I'm just dodging stuff, and I'm having a real hard time doing that. The game has mechanics where people do what are called fury attacks. They glow red, and they do an attack that ignores your iframes on dodges. So if you are within the area of that hit, you are getting hit. You cannot dodge it. You can run away and like stay out of the range of that, and that totally works. But otherwise, the game like hammers home very frequently. You want to be perfect blocking this shit. And you get even more bonuses than just like staggering them to get in your big damage. A lot of enemies, especially all the bigger ones that you would perfect block like frequently throughout a multiple minutes long fight, a lot of enemies, you can break their weapons if you parry them enough.
Ooh.
Yeah. There was a boss that I fought. The Black Rabbit Brotherhood was 4 bosses. Now there's only like one that gets a life bar, but after a certain amount of damage or a certain amount of time, one of his brothers or sisters will hop in the battle and start fighting you at the same time. So you're fighting 2 bosses.
Brotherhood, they hop in, huh?
Yeah, exactly. They all do hop quite a lot, actually. Not like rabbits, but they're jumping around.
I know, it's still funny.
It works. It works. And so you'll like focus down the ad, because if you don't and you just do more damage to the main guy, then you're suddenly fighting all 4 of them, and it sucks. It's really hard. But the main guy, if you spend most of your time perfect blocking, he's swinging at you with just like a huge greatsword. You break that shit in half if you break his weapon. And suddenly he's doing like half or maybe even like 30% of the damage he was doing before, and his reach is like cut in half. So he's way less of a threat. And so you take this really long, drawn-out slag of a fight that's probably going to use all of your healing, but you can get to a point where like even if you're at half health and are out of healing, the boss is actually pretty manageable because he's not really hitting you hard anymore. You've destroyed his weapon. And so there's like Lies of P just does so many good things right. It takes like the FromSoft formula and definitely uses it, and then introduces a bunch of their own little sprinkles of magic, and it works really well. Being able to break people's weapons is really cool. The storytelling, like 100% being Eldritch Nightmare Pinocchio, is working really well so far.
Yeah, because Pinocchio is even like a bit like a lot of those old fairy tales are like nightmare stories. Like the actual story of Pinocchio has people literally like corrupting kids with like booze and cigars and cigarettes.
Right. Well,
and they
that's
literally like transform into monsters and donkeys and then get sold as chattel slaves, and it's nightmare.
And that's the Disney version.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's worse. It's darker than that, actually.
They probably kill him and eat him or something. Like it's
been so long since I've read the original. But it's darker than that. It's wild that even half of that stuff made it into the Disney version. But so Lies of P does a pretty good job of integrating that. And on top of that, they do a really cool, unique thing with like the weapon system. Not only do you actually have different builds, you can go like a strength or a stamina build, as opposed to a Sekiro, where you just have the one weapon. You can mix and match the blades and handles of almost any weapon, of like basically any weapon you pick up except for boss weapons. And so you really, really get to kind of, you really get to like define your own playstyle. Strangely enough, usually I see people talk about like their first time through, they want to be tanky and do like a load of damage so they can more easily whittle down bosses, and kind of dex builds are more built for like styling around and feeling cool, even if they don't do as much damage. A lot more people, I think, have been going for dex builds because a lot of those weapons are faster. And the bosses in this game are really aggressive. So, like, actually being able to get hits in at all is very important. Particularly with the way this game handles staggering, is you'll get an enemy down to a point, a status called groggy. You've perfect blocked them enough to where they're like able to be staggered, but that doesn't make them staggered. You have to hit them with a charged heavy attack in order to stagger them. Some of the heavy weapons take a long time to do a charged heavy attack. And like some of them make up for it by like your charged heavy attack sees you like dash forward by 5 or 10 feet and then do it quickly, but you still have the build-up animation. But taking any hit while you're charging a heavy attack will knock you out of it.
Of course.
Some people, I've seen people do, like, they're doing mostly heavy weapons, but they keep, like, the fastest knife in the game as their off weapon. So they can do their regular attacks and their blocking, and then as soon as they're able to get staggered, they switch to the knife and do, like, a really quick charge heavy, which doesn't do any damage, and then switch back to their heavy weapon. But you have to have, like, the carry capacity for that. So that's... You know, there's it feels really well balanced in like the stat department and the weapon department. It hammers home that you have to get perfect blocks in. And so like just the mechanics of the game are really super good the whole way through so far.
Yeah, I remember just playing the demo, which not only the demo was a huge demo. Like,
it was big.
2 or 3 major bosses, a couple of mini bosses, all of which like felt good and challenging, but I definitely went through with the strength build, and I did not feel overly challenged at any time, because you do have like summons via like Elden Ring style, where you could just pull in an ally to help you for the big boss fights, and I definitely did that for like the big police bot that was at the end of the demo, and it was 2 or 3 tries to take it down, I think, with a summon helping me.
Yeah, I think every chapter boss has a summon like that. And like some of those bosses are hard without them. Interestingly, the Black Rabbit Brotherhood fight I felt was more difficult with a summon, because whenever like one of the brothers hops in to fight alongside, you're fighting like the eldest brother, the biggest brother, which is the one that has the boss health bar.
Yeah.
Whenever that happens, the eldest brother kind of stands back. He'll like rush at you every once in a while, but otherwise he's like slow walking and you can kind of easily kite the other people away. But if you have a summon with you, he doesn't do that. He's more aggressive the whole time. And sometimes he's aggressive at you. And sometimes the summon will like actually do enough damage that two of the brothers hop in at the same time. That being said, I took down like another chapter boss without a summon, and I want to say that boss fight took me like 3 hours.
Ooh.
Maybe a little more. Like the game will murder you quick if you're not really close to perfect on a lot of execution, and that probably would have been a lot easier with a summon.
Yeah, and definitely with the way they're doing mechanics and that, with trying not to focus on dodging, but with blocking, and especially perfect blocking. It's going to be a huge matter to get timing down perfectly. Otherwise, that game, if you fuck up timing on a block versus a perfect block, that is not only a difference for damage you take, but also those big heavy attacks from enemies. If you can't block them, but you can perfect block, I mean, that's maybe the difference between living and dying for a fight.
Some of it can be, yeah. Like, you're definitely still taking reduced damage whenever you block. You take no damage on perfect block, but whenever you block, you're still taking, like, a reduced damage. Every weapon effectively has, like, a soul's shield percentage. And so like a light weapon will block like 35% of the damage coming through, but like a really heavy weapon will block like 70. So some of the heavier weapons you can kind of use as shields, but you're still taking damage.
Yeah.
It has the Bloodborne rally mechanic of like if you get hit only when you're blocking, then you can recover some of that damage by hitting them back. But if you get hit outside of blocking, you just lose all that health.
Yeah, but you also said, I remember you talking with me previously about this. Bosses have a similar mechanic too. And you actually have to like perfect block them and like stagger and break them to get rid of that recoverable health bar the bosses have.
Right.
And that just being like a crazy like, oh, they have the same power as I do. That ain't good.
Yeah. Bloodborne had the rally mechanic where if you like take damage, you can go all offensive and go in and do some damage and recover your health. In Lies of P, like all major enemies also have that mechanic. So every boss, but also every single mini boss.
Yep.
Every single like big enemy that you're not going to kill in 2 or 3 hits, maybe even like normal enemies, but I haven't paid attention to it because you can take them down pretty quickly. Every single heavy enemy, mini boss, and boss also has the rally mechanic. So like you can do a bunch of damage to them, but not stagger them too much, and then they can hit you twice and recover like half of the damage you've done to them. It's very mean, and I love it. And it has like a really cool upgrade mechanic. You can choose various different upgrades that are completely separate from your stats. And a lot of neat stuff is unlocked that way. You definitely grow in power and mechanically as a character that way. You've got, instead of a shield or a gun, you have different arms that Pinocchio can use. And most all of them seem pretty cool. There's one that like looked cool. I thought it was going to be like a pile bunker equivalent, but instead you are, as soon as I saw the like video explanation for it, you're like shoving mines into the ground and then you have to kite people over them. And I was like, that doesn't look very cool. I don't think I'll ever use that. But man, during that Black Rabbit Brotherhood fight, I was like, damn, it'd be really easy to kite people into these mines actually, if I had that arm. And they all have their own upgrades. And I feel like I'm just talking about the mechanics of the game. The mechanics of the game are really good. It does a lot with the FromSoft Souls formula that From hasn't done before. And it's like alone just because of those, it like succeeds really well. It's kind of great because of it. The story and the setting are great so far. Like it's still minimal and not a lot of stuff has been explained, and it's definitely cribbing from Bloodborne. Like in Bloodborne, there was we talked about like during the Bloodborne movie thing, right? We talked about a lot of the different like story beats of Bloodborne. You have the blood ministration that people were initially using to heal themselves, and then that led to beasts and shit went wild. In Lies of P, you've got like 2 different versions of that, where people were initially making puppets, and they may have been making them out of weird alien star metal that they didn't fully understand, but fucking alchemists figured out how to work.
Yep.
And then puppets went wild, and we don't really know why. And right now, I think the next thing I'm going to be doing is going to fight the king of all puppets, which I don't know if it's a puppet or not. And they may have figured out that maybe that's the reason they all went wild, but I think I'm like halfway through the game, so there's definitely more. And there's also like a weird petrification plague that's been going around in the world. And some alchemist was going around offering a cure for that, but it turns out they may have been a rogue alchemist that stole some stuff from the alchemy people and is maybe not a real alchemist. And everybody exposed to those cures has been turning into a weird, freakish, like, kind of werewolf zombie thing.
Lovely. So
that's like a direct equivalency to Bloodborne's blood administration, rather.
Yeah.
So the setting and the world are also really cool and good. I am surprised I mean, it was only a matter of time, but I'm still kind of surprised at how quality someone not FromSoft has made a Souls game. Because there's been attempts,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of like Soulsborne ripoffs out there, and some of them are okay. There was the there's like a cyberpunk version, the Surge, I think it's called, that made 2 games, and they're pretty all right. I really enjoyed one of those. And then there's like a lot of other ripoffs that are not very good. In fact, I think there's, in the similar vein that like VTuber and Zuli the Witch and a couple of other people are out there like making a career off of FromSoft games. I know of at least one YouTube channel that has made a career off of like making videos that are just, I played 10 Bloodborne or 10 Souls games you didn't know exist, and they're all terrible. Here they are. So like Lies of P looks great, sounds great, feels great, has cool mechanics. Its story is interesting. We'll see where it goes. They've done a very good job, like, ripping off Bloodborne and Pinocchio and smashing them together. It's kind of surprising how good that game is. It was only a matter of time, but it's kind of surprising the quality with which they pulled it off. Oh, and the music is fantastic. Like, it has the big choir, orchestral boss fight themes, but also you can find little records that you can go back to play at your hub world, your hub home. And they're all really good. They're all like kind of French, how do I put it? Like early 1900s, late 1800s, like French contemporary music. Italian contemporary music, actually, probably. There's a lot of accordion in there sometimes. But everyone I've heard of I've only got like 3 of them, but they're all stellar. They're super, super, super pretty. It's just great. I'm kind of in love with it, really. Like, I'm thoroughly enjoying Baldur's Gate, and I thoroughly enjoyed Armored Core 6. Like, those games were amazing. Amazing, amazing, super fun to play the whole way through. Still playing Baldur's Gate, clearly. I'm surprised by how much I'm loving Blasphemous 2 and Lies of P. They're both really, really good. But yeah, if anyone likes, especially like Bloodborne or Sekiro, if you liked both of those games, check out Lies of P, for sure. It's like pretty hard, which is great. It's harder than I expected. I kind of love it.
Oh goodness. Sorry, I was curious about like what the current like. So while you were talking there, I was thinking like, what else have these devs made that I can compare it to? And apparently this isn't their first game; they've made others. But then I also found one negative review for this, which is just a huge wall of text that boils down to it's imitating FromSoft so good, but also really hard so is bad.
No, that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of great. Like, the boss that took me 3 hours, I probably could have beat it in 4 or 5 attempts if I were summoning. And the game gives you so many summoning materials. Like, you need to use an item at a little altar right before a chapter end boss fight to summon things, and I think I have like 65 of them right now. You're not gonna run out of those.
Yeah, so this is how the review ends.
Okay.
If you're using the wrong just an average gamer or Soulsborne fan, I wouldn't recommend playing this game. It's not like it's impossible. Wrong. It doesn't have the apostrophe. To beat, you will persist and beat the enemy that's giving you a problem, but there won't be any satisfaction because the fight was never fair in the first place. And the enemy was
Nah.
designed to be ridiculously hard to the point where it's most likely going to take several tries to beat.
I mean,
What kind of game were you looking for, my dude?
yeah, that's a criticism. I've seen people be like, what did they call it? It's not even pattern recognition, but the like, oh, there's a specific term I saw bounced around that was just like, maybe it was trial and error. You go in and you try some things and then you get flattened because you did some stuff wrong. And so you go, like, you learned a little bit there and then you go back in and try something different until it works. And some people are just like, yeah, I don't like, that's not for me. Fine. Yeah. I definitely wouldn't recommend like Sekiro or Dark Souls or Elden Ring to literally everybody. But that doesn't make it bad. I love it. I was thoroughly enjoying myself the entire 3 or 4 hours. Like, together with the, I want to say, like, chapter 4 and 5 bosses, 3 and 4 bosses, something like that. I was beating my head against a brick wall until the brick wall broke, and I loved it. It was great. It felt so good to finally overcome that challenge.
Yeah, and that's what's good about some of those challenging games. Like, I remember my first Balteus fight in Armored Core because it is a brutal uphill struggle against an enemy that is genuinely challenging because you don't have the mechanical skills and understanding of how to kill it quickly. And that game doesn't have levels. You're not going to get any stronger. You just have to get you have to be a better gamer to beat it.
Yeah.
And
you have to learn how to be a good pilot.
How to fight it and recognize its patterns. Second run through of Armored Core, I did the entire Balteus mission with the same loadout.
Yeah.
Which is what I prepped to take against the boss. So I'm fighting Sulo with his with my anti-shield gun and like other stuff. So like it's
it took me a while to beat that fight.
Better.
It took me a while to beat that fight, and I have now S-ranked it.
Yeah.
Like, I have one run where I think I went in and melted Balteus in, like, at least under 2 minutes.
But it's funny to, like, see people playing these games that are designed to be extra difficult and ultra difficult.
They're supposed to be hard.
They're supposed to be hard, and then they just either right from the start or...
Yeah. Like Reforged over here points out, finally, after 3 days of trying, Radon is in the fucking ground. Radon is such a cool fight, and, like, most people will walk into that boss fight and almost immediately die. Like, the first time.
Yeah.
But then you beat it, and you're like, God damn, that was so cool the whole way through. I love it. And that's, I mean, I'm getting that with Lies of P. It's great. I haven't seen anything as cool as Radon, but, like, Jesus, it's hard to get as cool as Radon. That's one of the coolest things FromSoft has ever done.
Very true. Very true. What is this?
Nandaka.
Some of the reviews were complaining about something that it uses called De Nouveau, which apparently is an anti-piracy thing that people didn't like as well.
Yeah, I mean, Armored Core had that problem. Was it Armored Core? Yeah, Armored Core had easy anti-cheat, which is like a kernel level installation that people hate. And De Nouveau is also a thing that they just like, they can kind of stick around after you uninstall the game, and they can they'll like hit your PC performance more than other anti-cheat things. I don't really know why Lies of P has it. Lies of P is in contrast to FromSoft games, Lies of P is an entirely solo experience. You can like summon phantoms for help during boss fights, but there's no semblance of multiplayer whatsoever.
I don't even think it's PvP.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
You get there are like mini bosses that are like the equivalent of Souls Invaders, which played more like a human player than any of the bosses. They'd be like using the same exact move sets you have available, and were aggressive and dodgy in ways that all of the rest of the enemies weren't. But yeah, there's no multiplayer whatsoever. There's no messages, there's no summons, there's no invading people's worlds or helping other people out. It's entirely solo. I don't know why it has anti-cheat.
Well, I mean, people fuck with stuff anyways. So
Yeah, I mean, they can already do that with mods.
true. But I don't know. But yeah, it yeah, like one review is like pros, early access, cons, de novo. It's like, how is that? Whatever, man. Fuck it. Like, play the game or don't.
Well, de novo, I think like easy anti-cheat and de novo have both, for valid reasons, earned a bad reputation. Like I think de novo makes some PCs that can like barely run a game smoothly but could run it smoothly without de novo completely unrunnable at all.
Maybe. But
That's definitely been a thing. I know people don't. It's been a while since I've looked into that, but I know people don't like it, and I remember seeing very valid reasons for why. But I mean, I'm not noticing it. The game runs very smoothly. It looks fantastic. I'm seeing a lot more graphical errors in Baldur's Gate 3 than I am in Lies of P.
yeah, Baldur's Gate is a great example of a game that people love that has a fuck ton of errors with it.
It shipped with actually like a comical amount of errors, and it's one of the least buggy CRPGs on launch, like in a long time. Granted, more of the bugs that I definitely have experienced, but people ran into were like concentrated toward the latter end of the game. And Act 3, I think, is all in the city of Baldur's Gate, which is like massive and incredibly densely populated, so it doesn't run anywhere near as well as the rest of the game. But that doesn't fucking matter because it's fantastic. It's super good the whole way through. And they've already patched a lot of stuff to fix it, and will continue to do so for years.
Yeah, which is fantastic for any game dev to actually have them.
Yeah,
take that level of dedication.
Larian is super good. They put out a thing recently. This is no longer Lies of P, so I'm going to take that off my screen. They put out a thing recently where I don't know who the GM was, but they had all of the voice actors play a like 2.5 hour long little D&D session. And I want to say the guy who plays Gale, the wizard, had literally never played any tabletop RPG, or he probably isn't even a gamer. He had never rolled dice before in his life.
Ooh.
So like they made a point of being like near the start, this is your first time rolling dice. Better make it a good one. And so I haven't watched that yet, but I want to. It seems pretty cool.
Nice. There's a lot of good D&D stuff out there, but yeah. So I think we've beaten Lies of P to death. Another fantastic game. I don't think we've had any tonight that we haven't really recommended, because you started with which one did you
I started with Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate,
like,
Game of the Year contender. You praised it.
Game of the Year winner, no question.
Then you went to Blasphemous 2, strongly recommended it. Lies of P, strongly recommended it. And I recommended definitely Sea of Stars. Evil West, I'm kind of keeping my eyes open to see if it goes downhill potentially, because I'm still pretty early on in. But might be good, might be bad. We'll see. I have one other game that I am playing now. Older game from 2015 called Rack and Ruin. I talked to you about playing this as like a something for you to play, kind of like what I did with Disco Elysium, where I went in and played
completely
a game
blind.
that I'd never touched before that you had, and you kind of got to ride co-pilot for that. And we talked about it for Rack and Ruin, and never really did anything with it. So I'm like, you know what? It's Halloween. I'm gonna I'm gonna play this myself.
It's not October yet. I might still play it. That being said, I might actually just play like a bunch of Kusoge for October.
Yeah. Honestly, man, you are not hurting for choices. You still have to beat the messenger. You still have to beat cassette beast, and I will yell at you until you do that because you are right before the game gets really, really good.
Really,
It starts off really good already, but then it like
It's-
hits that mid stage, and you start getting some idea of what the fuck is going on.
It's quality.
And it gets even better.
Okay. I was considering beating that, just kind of playing that in my free time off stream, but I haven't touched it yet, so yeah, I could come back to it.
Yeah, it's so fucking good.
There's just so much good out, and I don't know when that's going to stop, because, like, the next Final Fantasy comes out first quarter of next year. But Rack and
Yeah.
Ruin, though.
But yeah, it's a kind of top-down perspective game, very similar to
I'm
like
gonna go
Legend
to
of
the
Zelda: Link to the
bathroom
Past.
real quick while you
Sure.
do the kind of intro. I'll be right back.
So it's got kind of like a Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past kind of vibe going for it in terms of how it plays, where you are a little demon who is trying to conquer the world for your demon lord. Your name is Rack. Your lord is Ruin, hence the name. So you are specifically and instinctively the bad guy going through this game and just being a menace to everything around you. And it's fun to have a game where you are intentionally just playing a villain, but also like it is another darkly themed game. Like one of the first things that your character does is he gets to the local town and he poisons the well. The implication I took is he pees in the well, but definitely the well is poisoned and people drink well water and they die. They like literally show up in different parts of the map and like, oh, I drank some of the well water and it made my tummy rumbly and now here I am and I can see through my hand. He's just like, yeah, you died. Get in my soul bag. And the way you upgrade your basic attacks and abilities is literally capturing people's souls and trading them in for more power. Like that's how you get stronger. Like you improve your health and mana by corrupting the various zones you're interacting in. And not only does it make you stronger, it wildly enhances the dangerousness of the enemies. Because like a normal enemy from the start of the game is these little like tribal people, and they're just some regular ones who just wander around. There's some warrior ones that like run at you with a spear. When you corrupt them, they start teleporting and shooting lasers at you. So it just goes from, oh, this is a cute, fun little thing, and oh, you're slightly dangerous, to no, this is death on wheels, and it's terrifying.
Yeah, that's a big
Literally-
escalation.
Yeah, literally the starting zone has little bunny rabbits in it, and they're super easy to kill. And part of the tutorial has you corrupting that zone. You need to do it to leave. And when you do that, the bunny rabbits look exactly the same, but the moment you get close to one of them, they go full-on Monty Python rabbit,
Right.
jump at your face, and start sucking the blood out of you and swelling wildly while screaming and making noise. You're just running around like, ah, get it off, get it off, get it off, get it off. And like, everything just becomes incredibly more lethal and dangerous, especially early on when you don't really have the skills and toolkit to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do get more spells and abilities, and some of them you get very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do get like a sword that when you hit stuff with it, you are able to apply a bit of a knockback. You do get like a fireball spell that you can upgrade to, like when it hits a target, it splits in two directions. But if the target's big enough, those split fireballs just hit it again.
Right.
But you can upgrade your fireball to explode, or you can upgrade your fireball to do both. So it hits, explodes, splits, and both the splits explode. So you
Okay.
get like crazy ability to like do a lot of damage, but it takes a while to really ramp up to your full strength. Because you just get to this world that you're taking over, and you don't have any of your powers at all. The implication is you were sent here to die, and instead you succeed and you thrive. And if memory serves, the final dungeon of the game is you like finishing off the last of the like good places in this world, and your boss shows up and is just like, all right, you little shit, you're about to blow up this world again, aren't you? because that's the start of the game, is you seeing like this perfect, beautiful world at the beginning. You're like, oh, I guess we're playing the game here, and then it blows up.
Okay.
And then this little like light flies to the next world, and it blows up, and then it blows up, and then it blows up, and then you keep going like a couple in a row until finally your character Rack is summoned before the Demon Lord Ruin, which is like, Rack, what did I tell you to do? And you're like, conquer the universe in your name, oh great lord. And what did you do? I blew it the fuck up. You don't see why that's a problem, Rack? No. He's like, if you blow it up, I don't have any. Blown up planets make for bad slaves, Rack. Like we need slaves to serve the forces of evil.
Right. Destroying is not conquering.
Yeah, basically. So the implication is that you were sent here to die. And then you don't, and you succeed. You do very well, and then like your boss shows up to basically be the final dungeon after relatively simple dungeons for a lot of the earlier levels. The final dungeon is a full-on like Ganon's Tower, like multi-level, big chonkin dungeon. And at the end, you fight Ruin, and no, not a major spoiler. Like I said, the game's been out for close to 10 years.
Right.
But it's really good, and it's difficult and challenging, and like I literally, I found out about the game because I tried backing it on Kickstarter, and they didn't get their funding numbers, so they couldn't make the game through that. But they went and made it anyways, and they were still reaching out to people through Kickstarter to say like, hey, is there anybody who wants to help us beta test this?
Right.
And at that point, I had some spare time. It was between jobs. I'm like, yeah, I'll help you. So I helped them beta test the game as well, on top of like Kickstarter. So like,
that's cool.
This is a game that means a lot to me personally, because I'm like, I helped make this thing, help bring this thing here, help make it cool. I will say, there are some flaws. The controller support is a little bit rough. Like,
oh really?
Moving around it has controller support, and you can move around through the menus with the controller stick, but the D-pad does nothing.
Oh
Absolutely nothing.
That's not great.
Yeah, so
the little bit I've seen of the game made it look like it would be super controller friendly.
It seems like that. So yeah, it's a little rough in that regard, and I don't think they've put out anything since this game. I think this was their one and done. Yeah, it's this and the soundtrack, and that's it.
Wow.
So I kind of hope they do make more stuff, because they did make a good core game with this, but it's, you know, with the story of what they dealt with and were trying to work on, like, you know, trying to kickstart it, not succeeding, made the game anyways. I hope it was financially successful for them.
Right.
But I don't know if it was.
Maybe they just broke even and couldn't really fund another project.
Maybe.
At the very least, maybe they, you know, the people who worked on it went to have jobs elsewhere in the industry and are still making games.
Possibly, and I hope that. I hope they, because like I said, they made a good game. Like, they made a game that's like, we wanted Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and we wanted to mesh it with Dark Souls, and they did a good job of putting those two together to make a game that's genuinely challenging. Because one example of an enemy that gets corrupted, it's like a big, almost like Yeti Sasquatch monster. I think I described it to you, Rad, as like a bear initially. And what they do when they're normal is they jump up in the ground, slam the ground, and they do a knockback. Or they do it like an area of effect with tremor, which stuns you momentarily, and then they run up and punch you. So you kind of have to like stay back and attack them at range to kind of stay out of the knockback and to get away when you're stunned.
Right.
And then when you corrupt the zone, their coloration changes, because a lot of things do when you change out of zone. But literally, they don't have a face anymore. It's just a maw filled with teeth. They just turn and look at you and run right at you and then explode.
I'm a big fan of enemies that are just like indecipherable teeth.
Yeah, like it's like the same basic body, but like the face is just gone, and it just runs at you, and it's just a kamikaze thing. But it's a ton of health. You're trying to like run and kite this thing to try and keep it away, so you don't die in the explosion. Because no matter what happens, it's gonna blow up. Like when you kill it in time, it still blows up.
Right.
So you're trying to like deal with this thing and deal with all the little minions that sometimes are popping up around you. So yeah, you are making the game genuinely harder by
by doing your job and like
by doing the
actually
thing
playing
that
through the game.
That ends up making you stronger. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
You can choose not to corrupt a zone if you want, but then you'll have less health and less magic to deal with stuff later.
Right. That's a neat
So-
balance. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, but it has a lot of like dark humor to it as well. Like one area, like one of the people in the village is this little girl who has a pet cat, and Rack keeps kind of saying shitty things about like the pet cat. You know, I know somebody who will buy a cattail for a good price. And
Right.
she's like, I don't like you. You're not being. I don't like you. Neither does Mew Mew. And like after you leave the first village, you like find her in the woods, and she's looking for her cat, and you're like, maybe I'll find it first and get the tail. She's like, no, you won't. I'll find Mew Mew first, and everything will be fine. And then you corrupt the zone, and you find her and the cat as a ghost.
Right.
And you find out what happened is you corrupted the zone because the cat was an animal in the zone. It turned evil, and it basically found her instead, attacked and killed her, ate her, but choked on her as it ate her, and died. And that's why she and the cat are both ghosts, because the
Right.
cat killed her and then choked on her and died. And then you just take their soul, their collective soul.
Right. And your
use
character's
it to power
response
up
to
your
this
weapons.
is good, cool, upgrade
Good,
points.
cool, getting the soul bag.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it is grim and dark about a few things.
Okay. What are you listening to? Rack and Ruin, apparently.
Rack and Ruin, you're listening to me describe a game. But yeah, it is a little rough around the edges. It is
I
definitely
mean,
very smooth. Like as you're like moving around combat wise, like you almost have a little bit of drift when you're moving.
okay, it's a little
which is-
floaty.
it's- Yeah, a little floaty, a little drifty. But it's actually kind of good. It does have a good feel.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
But it
I,
is a good
I
game. I
remember
might-
this like getting on my. I think I've said this multiple times. I remember that getting on my radar quite a while ago, and then never actually playing it.
Mhm.
So like, it's nice to hear that you enjoy it, and it like it does what it set out to do.
yeah, and it's a very nostalgic experience to me because like I said, I did buy it and play it years ago, but it's been ages since I touched this game,
Hmm
and it's nice to be able to get back to it and play it again.
When did this
and
come out? Like
share-
2010,
15.
15? Okay. Okay.
I think 15. Right? Yeah, September 1st of 2015.
Okay.
So, you know, fun game, and I'm enjoying it. Might finish it on stream, might not. It really kind of depends.
Right.
There
there's-
isn't even a lot to it. Like there's several zones, but I think what is it like? Initially, when you like get to the town and start meeting people, they're like, "Yeah, you're fine. Our guardian protector will kill you." And then the first boss you fight and kill is the guardian protector.
Right.
So immediately, like the local druid or wizard is like, "Oh shit, they just killed our guardian protector." Okay, you know, you go do this thing and I'll go do this other thing, and like you slowly have to like make your way to each of those people and kill them, and then I think that's when you trigger like the end section.
Right. So you go through like multiple planets as zones.
No, multiple zones inside the same planet.
Okay.
So like you start off in one forest, and then you make it to the town, and then from the town you make it to like a castle area where the guardian protector is at, and then there's like a hill area to the east of that. There's like kind of a place that's like a mix of like plains and woods where like a lot of those beast people live.
But so you have like
and-
plenty of different environments and plenty of different enemy variety.
Mhm,
And all
yeah,
that.
You do.
Okay. Okay. Good. It sounds good. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm interested in playing it. There's just so much stuff out right now.
Yeah, it's
And
it's
stuff I
not
wanna
a
get
good
back
time.
to.
It's not a good time to play it now with like Liza P and Baldur's Gate and Blasphemous. Like
Right.
you're gonna play the ones you really want to play that are also the new popular games. So yeah,
Right.
100%.
Well, and even then, I think next month might be like Baldur's Gate, but also just a bunch of bad horror games that are popular. Like I might play Parasocial and everything else that creator's made
Mhm.
just for October.
That's why I started playing my horror games now. It's like it's gonna take me a little while to get through it. I didn't realize that some of them are gonna be so fast, but
Horror games. You play horror games now.
all of the games I'm playing now have horror elements in them.
Well,
Like they're
that's-
not full
that's
on
true.
horror games, but
That's true. That's true.
No, absolute like Sea of Stars is a surprising contender for a good spooky month game because the big like the big alchemist that's causing all the problems is someone who goes by the title the Fleshmancer. And when you have a title called the Fleshmancer, you have a rough idea of what his creations look like, and they do not disappoint.
Okay, yeah, I think you may have sent me I saw something that mentioned that before. Yeah, body horror definitely fits.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's if you're looking for, you know, a game to play during Spooky Month that has some of those elements to it, like, because Sea of Stars is really funny because specifically like the Saturday game that I sent you the link to, that I sent to chat earlier, that I think Rad shared with his chat.
Mm-hmm.
In that one stream, I go up a wizard's tower, meet somebody there, they teleport me to a mountain. And I'm going through that, and it's like fairly good and upbeat. I come back from the mountain, like, okay, I'm gonna teleport you back to like the island where you met me at. I want you to go into this place and kill a giant horror monster that's living underground. And the tone is such a stark shift. The enemies underground have like, because most normal enemies have like 60 health, 100 health. These are like, nope, this thing has 500 health.
Mm-hmm.
And your characters are hitting it for 15 damage. But then you use your spells because you find out, like, you know, I got some lore notes for this. Somebody found out that, like, oh, the minions of the Fleshmancer are vulnerable to solar magic and lunar magic, which is wielded by people who are born on the solstice.
And that's like your two main characters too, right?
That's why your main characters were chosen for what they for this mission. They were born on the solstice, and a mechanic of the world, this great eagle, found them, brought them to this village that had been prepared to train these warriors to stop the minions of the Fleshmancer. So you are specifically like designed to kill these things, but also you're the only two that can do that because you have other characters in your party, but like one is an assassin who deals poison damage. These things don't take jack shit damage from poison damage. It's hardly anything. And like another one is a character. It's the warrior cook. He just whacks them with like a pot lid that he uses as like a shield. They don't take a lot of damage from that. You have to hit them with solar or lunar, which you can one shot them with that. But it's still just like, holy shit, these things are a menace, and to anyone other than us trying to kill them, it would be impossible. Right.
Yeah, I can only imagine Fleshmancer creations being horrific.
Yeah, honestly, I've fought because there's like a lot of smaller enemies that he's done where you're fighting them and you're like, yeah, no, this is nightmarish. But then there are the big enemies, which they call dwellers.
Okay.
Which essentially have unlimited potential. They will keep getting stronger and growing. And the goal of your order is to kill because dwellers are even worse than regular minions of the Fleshmancer. Dwellers are only vulnerable during an eclipse. They cannot be hurt at all outside of that. So whenever there's an eclipse, your order of Solstice Warriors goes out and kills the strongest dweller that's out there. Because if you don't, and they get strong enough, they turn into what the game has just been calling a world eater. And it just kills that world. And I found out why they call it that, and why people, because I was mentioning it to like somebody else recently. We're like, how does somebody know they turn into a world eater? Has that happened before and they were able to stop it? I'm like, I don't really know yet, but I know now. I know now why it happened. I know now who found out that solar and lunar magic is effective. I know who found out about the eclipse being a tool that could kill the dwellers. I know all of that now. Because actually, here's an interesting thing. The game has one character that her entire thing is she is a wandering like lore keeper, and she has a magic book. If you bring her a relic of some importance in the world, and she holds it and like holds up her book, the book will write the story of that relic in the book.
Okay.
And record it, and then you can go to her to find out stories about things in the world.
That's a cool way to do like expository lore.
Well, it's not only just expository lore, it's also sometimes information on like people you're going to be running into or interacting with. Because the first story you get is about the Vespertine, a ghost ship. Eventually, you
Okay.
go to the Vespertine. You try and take it back because essentially it's a conflict between the captain who and his first mate, the navigator. The navigator wanted to retire from pirate life and just go on to be a regular person, and the captain was just like, no, that's stupid and bullshit. But he was like the wind mage that kept the ship going, so he just shut off the wind and trapped them in the middle of the ocean. And they just basically both got really stubborn, and finally the crew had enough of it, and they mutinied and killed the captain. And his last words were to curse the crew, and it pulled the entire ship into a place called the Sea of Nightmares, where it basically stays all the time except for right at dusk when it teleports back into our world for a minute and then jumps back to the Sea of Nightmares. And eventually you need a ship, and there's a perfectly good pirate ship there. You just gotta go break the curse that's keeping it bound to the Sea of Nightmares.
Okay.
And it's a lot. It's a bit crazy. And you know, it's, you know, when you have topics like ghost pirate ships and a Sea of Nightmares and minions of the Fleshmancer, that is a really good like stealth Halloween game with a lot of the topics and tools, you know, things that are in this, because it just works. Also, hi Void, enjoy your lurk.
Hello Void.
But that's very good. One thing I completely forgot to mention, they added a mini game to this. It was not in the demo.
Oh yeah.
Which is essentially is kind of like a slots game where you like get little like figurines you can place, and you pull in a slot and it pulls out tiles that determine like, you know, what types of energy you have to use. And you like as you accumulate that, eventually your figurines will get a turn and they can attack. So
you get like you get minions. In the minigame.
It's I would say these are closer to like generals. But like as you build up energy, so like one example is like a mage, and they'll throw two fireballs. They'll throw one that's a low height and one that's at a high height. And you can defend your castle in this mini game by building a wall. Well, the mage is really good at destroying walls, but that first low shot is almost always going to hit the wall. But then it drops the wall down, so the upper shot will always go over it.
Huh.
So they're very good at destroying walls and bypassing them to deal damage to an enemy. But they're also archers that they're not very good at breaking walls at all, but they're very good at dealing damage to the castle. If you get the wall low and then have an archer fire, they'll do a ton of damage. But I also got kind of stuck in one during Sunday's game where they had a, I'm going to call it a mason. I'm not sure what it technically is. Maybe it's an engineer. But their thing is whenever they got to take a turn, they would build up their own wall and completely destroy the opponents. Like, doesn't matter how tall your wall is, they drop it to 0.
Wow. So they built a mini game with like some pretty good depth to it.
Yeah, it's because it's basically like you just kind of like pull in a slot thing, and it'll give you results of like, you know, the character on the left, the character on the right. Do you want to build walls, like different icons that mean different things, and you need a total of 3 in order for somebody to take an action. But different, like some of the options are like like one of the icons is a square. I forget which character it is. I think that's the left one.
Mm-hmm.
But like some of them will have 1 square on, 2 squares, or 3 squares. Well, you need a total of 3 squares to act at all. So if you get a 3 square option on the roulette, you can just lock that, keep it in, and then re-roll the other 4 to see if you get something else at another combination, or maybe you're going to get more squares so that instead of just adding a little bit more energy to the left-hand unit, you're going to add a lot so that maybe it can take a full action every turn, or, you know, stuff like that. So there's a little bit of strategy to it.
Okay.
It's got surprising depth to it.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Like all that in the middle of the game that I was thinking about picking up anyway.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, fantastic game. Another thing which kind of they released it a little bit early for it to be a good Halloween game, but uh, actually in Honkai Star Rail, they added a swarm encounter for a period in their history when the Aeon of Propagation, a big old bug that made tons and tons of bugs, to cause what they referred to as a great swarm, which is think of it as like galactic locusts destroying worlds as they pass through them.
Right.
And you like go into this and get like that as an option in the simulated universe. And that was more of like early this month, end of last month when it like came out and was available for play. But definitely fun, definitely interesting. Rather than doing like the typical simulated universe of just running through a room and picking a portal at the end of every turn, you get like pulled out to like a hex map, and you get to pick your route on the hex map of like the available options. So maybe you want to do another combat room, maybe you want to do a mini game room, maybe you want to do like a shop room to buy some upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really fun and interesting, but it was very challenging. I have a bunch of max level characters that are like fully leveled up, fully spec'd out, fully geared up. I've been hitting that game like crazy, and I could not get past difficulty level 3. To be clear, there are 5 difficulties.
Okay.
I finished 3, 4 just stonewalled me at the end. Because they would like enemies, because enemies would just have more health, and the more turns they take, they just had a stacking damage buff. So it's getting to the point where in a turn, and then like the final boss would AoE the whole party and then hit one person, and each hit did like more than 50% health. So somebody would just die. And as soon as it started doing that, I would just snowball, and it just killed me. Apparently a recent release character makes that a lot easier, but it is still very hard content.
Yeah, I haven't touched that game in a while. I don't even know if I still have
You haven't
it
had
installed,
time.
actually. Well, yeah, that too.
I haven't had time, and there's been too many other good games.
There's too much good stuff out right now, for sure.
Yeah.
Krakens are just weird-looking alligators. I think they're a bit more than that, but that's an apt comparison.
They're like dinosaurs with wings. That's all you needed to tell me as a kid to sell me on dragons.
Yeah, and cool magical breath attacks that are usually fire, but not always.
Not always. But yeah, some good stuff out now. I don't know necessarily what I'm going to play next after I'm done with this batch of games. Because looking at it, I don't think Rack and Ruin's going to take me too many more times to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I started it up last time, I could see like my playtime, and I think it might only be about 10 hours to clear it quickly. If I'm not trying to 100% it. What did it say here? The main story in Rack and Ruin estimates it as 6 hours. Main plus extras is 9.5. Completionist is 12. There is an achievement for speed running it in 1 hour and 45 minutes, which I do not have.
Wow.
So it's
seems
not
like a
super
pretty quick
long.
time to-
Evil West.
It seems like a pretty
Sorry,
quick
go
time to beat a game like that.
Yeah, it basically boils down to like don't explore, learn where things are, and like clear through it quickly. 'Cause like I
Right.
said, I don't think there's many dungeons because there's like the starter one with the like the defender boss, and then like I just finished one in like the western desert, and then I know there's one in the eastern plains or mountains area that I can deal with, and then it's like going after the druid in the forest. And then it's the final dungeon. So there isn't a lot. Like, I think it might be next stream will be taking out the next defender, like the knight, and then maybe I'd even get to the forest to take on the druid. And then the stream after that might just be the final boss castle. So it's maybe 3 or 4 streams to finish it, which sounds like it's all it's going to take for Evil West as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you might beat Rack and Ruin even more quickly than that.
Close to.
I mean, it sounds like there's
around
not much left.
Yeah. But yeah. But both good games, both worth checking out if you're in any way interested by the things we described. Rack and Ruin is probably the hardest sell because it's an older game. It's a very specific and distinct style, but I do think it's worth people giving a shot because it has its niche and it does what it does very well.
Mm-hmm.
But then
Yeah, I mean,
obviously-
I'm interested. I really haven't looked at it too much, but like everything you said sounds good.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously Baldur's Gate, like people are checking that out left, right, and center. Liza P left, right, and center. Like that's
Yeah,
top
you don't.
selling on Steam now. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to be told to play Liza P.
Yeah, you don't really. Right. If you don't really need to be sold on either of those. Baldur's Gate sells itself. Like I was saying earlier, I was catching up with a buddy who does not play RPGs and they're loving it. You know if you will like Lies of P or not. It's high quality. If it's the type of game that you like, you already know it. If it's your first like Soulsborne game, it's gonna be pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is quite difficult, but it's really good. It's really quality.
So I was a little curious where things lined up in the top sellers on Steam. Right now, Cyberpunk is up there because Phantom Liberty is.
Yeah, it just came out.
Phantom Liberty is number one, so people are buying Cyberpunk in order to play Phantom Liberty. Number two is Baldur's Gate 3. Still, even though it's been out like for 2 months now, it's still like number 2 on Steam.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, then it's a casual multiplayer game called Party Animals, which I guess released. Released like a week ago.
Yeah. That got a bunch of news. Well, not like a bunch of news, but that got a lot of attention back when it was announced. And yeah, Party Animals. There's another game that looks like it plays almost exactly like it. I forget what it's called. It's something Beasts, but it looks like a pretty cool party game for sure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, after Party Animals, it's Tom Clancy's Rainbow Siege 6 is still up there, which is nice. Maybe there's a sale or something, I don't know. But Starfield is up there, Mortal Kombat 1, EA Sports, Apex Legends, Steam Deck, Paleo Pines, which is what are the tags for this one?
Never heard of
Farming Sim. There's a Call of Duty, and then next on slot number 13 is Liza P. So it's just barely out of the top 10 for Steam. So it's done very well for itself so far. Actually curious if they announced any of the numbers.
I don't know. I mean, it came out like a week or so ago, maybe more. Maybe less actually. No, it's been at least a week. And those games are not for everyone. It's not going to do as well as Elden Ring or whatever From puts out next.
Oh, yeah.
Like at all. But it's pretty good.
Yeah, so it says according to first 3 days it came out on Steam, it made $5 million in revenue. So
not bad.
Ooh, Sea of Stars made $1 million or almost $1 million in revenue in the first week on Steam. Fantastic.
Very good. I bet you more money was spent on Lies of P than Sea of Stars. So, like, those are both pretty good numbers.
Probably, but I can't say for certain. Like, they have very different and distinct styles, and I don't know.
Just from the fucking assets in Lies of P, I'm pretty sure it cost more to make.
But they also got the composer behind Chrono Trigger for Sea of Stars. And I don't know how cheap they were. Or I should say how expensive, I should say.
God, Mitsuda's on the project?
Oh yeah. I didn't mention that.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I expect their music to be good just based off of what I've seen, but... And you know, now that you mentioned that, I think I've heard it before, but I totally forgot.
Yeah, no, they have the Chrono Trigger composer for Sea of Stars.
Or perhaps better known right now as the Xenoblade composer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Mitsuda did those games too. Or at least the first and third one. Probably the second one too. Mitsuda kind of doesn't miss. Like he's been going since the Nobuo Uematsu era, and he was always a big competitor. Like I know people who are my age and grew up playing the same shit I did when I was back there, like, God damn, Nobuo Uematsu, just amazing composer. And they're like, yeah, he's great. I'm a Mitsuda fan though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just go listen to Chrono Trigger, and then Chrono Cross came out, and you're like, I don't know about that game so much as a game, but holy shit, that soundtrack is amazing. Soundtrack is so good. Like I wouldn't really
there are
recommend.
people with criticisms of Chrono Cross. I did play it back in the day. I don't remember it well enough to know
I think they're all
if
valid.
I liked it or not. What I will say
Do
is,
we
I
want to
remember
talk
playing,
about Chrono Cross? Because I can.
All I'll really say is I remember playing Chrono Trigger many times. I remember playing Chrono Cross once.
Yeah.
Maybe twice with a New Game Plus.
Yeah.
But
Chrono Cross. We're way off topic now. Doesn't matter.
We're having fun.
Chrono Cross, like, it tries to do a bunch of stuff and doesn't do it very well. It has like a weird combat system that you can kind of exploit, and it's okay. Its story is kind of all over the place, and I don't remember a lot of it because most of it is just very, very uninteresting, except for like some later bits. It also does horrible things to like what happened in Chrono Trigger after the end of that game. I think like the main criticism of it as a game is that like it has like, I don't know how many characters, like 50 or 60 or 80 characters, and 3 of them matter. All of the rest of them are like, hey, you're a weird person, you want to join my party? Yeah. And that's the entire extent of any character building they get.
Yep. There's a lot of nothing characters.
Did you know that Magus is in that game? He's a character. He was probably in your party.
I don't remember the big ones I remember from that game were obviously your main character, who was tied to people. There's the blonde who has plot relevance.
Yep.
And then I remember Glenn, the swordsman.
Yep.
I don't remember how relevant his plot stuff is.
You don't
I
remember?
do think he had like some side quest stuff that he could do.
You don't remember Lynx or the Jester character?
I do remember Lynx because
Okay.
you are Lynx at one point in the story, and I know they have plot
Or
relevance
like a
too,
significant portion of the story. Yeah.
But you like in that instance, he's not really an additional party member. He's just replaces your main.
But story-wise, they do like a body swap.
Yeah.
And so he's a different character. But yeah, he does effectively just replace your main. Yeah, there's a bunch of characters like, yeah, so there's Glenn, who's not Glenn, but he's Glenn.
He's not Glenn, but wants the Muramasa sword, the Masamune sword, and is definitely not Glenn, who also wants the Masamune sword.
Right. There's a magician character in that game who is canonically Magus, who has lost his memory.
Interesting.
No, it's not interesting. It's bad because it doesn't do anything with it. There's a point where you can find the ghosts of, I know it's Marl and Luca and maybe Chrono. It might be somebody else. But you can find the ghosts of them just hanging out in like a time lost, fate warped area. And they reveal to you that Dalton, shortly after the events of the end of Chrono Trigger, came into the present day and killed everybody, including them. which is dumb and bad. I don't know. The music in that game is fantastic. Everything else, like, just don't play Chrono Cross. Just don't. Listen to the soundtrack, sure. But otherwise, just don't play Chrono Cross. It's not good. It doesn't do anything fun or interesting. And it kind of shits all over Chrono Trigger, which didn't need to happen.
No. Of all the games to shit on, don't shit on Chrono Trigger.
Don't do that.
No. Not a beloved game like that.
I think that's a good place to call it. We talked about what we wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
and we're just going to get off topic.
Very wildly, yeah. But okay. Do you have anything else you want to announce for streamer stuff?
No, I think I've already put out a schedule. I don't know if I have that over here. Yeah, I've put out a schedule.
Again later tonight, right?
Yeah, I want to do some Lies of P later tonight because I haven't touched that in a little bit. I spent 6 hours playing Blasphemous yesterday, and it's great. Gonna play some more Baldur's Gate tomorrow. It's basically just gonna be those three for a little while, and then I have no idea what comes afterwards. I've got
Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars should come afterwards.
That's a good option. I think I want to spend most of October playing some horror games because there's a lot of little indie horror stuff that I haven't touched that looks kind of interesting.
All right, have your fun.
And then after that, and I'll probably be playing Baldur's Gate at the same time because that's just that I have to continue that. It's too big. And then I don't really know in between like October and I think February is when the next Final Fantasy comes out. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I guess real quick, you haven't played Remake. Have you seen any of the media of Rebirth, or have you been avoiding that as well?
I saw like a trailer during one of the Game Award things or something.
Yeah. It looks really good. Oh my! But you should really play those games.
I think I remember talking to you about like when the announcement came out, because we'd seen like Pat and Wooly talking about how this was like going to require multiple discs.
Oh, they announced that a while ago.
Yeah.
The next game is
talking about
two PS5 discs.
Yeah, talking about like how much disk space stuff takes up. Like this thing's gonna be half a terabyte on a PC or something godforsaken like that.
It's probably going to be around at least 140 gigs.
Yeah.
I don't know how big a PS5 disc is these days. I know Blu-rays for a while were like 70, 75 gigs. So it's going to be big. Let's see.
PS5 disc is 100 gigs of data.
Okay. So it's at least bigger than that.
So yeah, so it could be it's somewhere between 100 and 200.
Yeah. So Rebirth, so much I could say, but I don't want to spoil like anything.
I need to play that at some point. My only problem is I don't really want to play that on.
You don't need to play it like on stream.
Well, no. My point is, if you can transfer save data, I want to play both of them on the same system.
You cannot. They're building Rebirth to be able to be played by someone who didn't play the first one. You get like some little, I think, cosmetic bonuses or some little bonuses, but you could go up like it'd be.
So it's not a proper transfer, so I don't need to worry about playing them on the same system. I can buy the one on PC and then play the other one on PlayStation.
Yeah, you cannot transfer your progress from one game to the next.
It's a bit disappointing.
A little bit, but it would be really hard to balance things. And they're also like changing the combat system. Like
Yeah, that's some Xenosaga mistakes going on there potentially.
It looks like nothing but good stuff. Okay, so
All right.
real quick, they had like the first game has a lot of materia and a lot of weapons that were clearly not in the original, right? Because in OG FF7, like just for Cloud, right, you have the Buster Sword and the Hard Edge near the end. There's like 6 or 7 or 8 different swords for Cloud in Remake.
Makes sense because it's a whole game. that
It's
was
a
compressed
whole
at the
game.
same time.
It's like a 50-hour long game if you do all the side quests.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you have like they're changing the ways things work. In the first one, it does a really, really fantastic job of being this like in between of an action RPG and traditional ATB style game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it does not play like FF16.
Good.
Yeah, they've clearly always wanted to make something like that, and I think what they did with FF7 is kind of the perfect in between best of both worlds. Every character has different mechanics in combat. Like Cloud can switch back and forth in between 2 stances, and one of them is like your regular combat stance, and the other one is like he moves slow, but he hits harder and he can counter stuff, which works really well for like regular fights and some boss fights. Tifa has a system where she can like buff herself up and do different normal special moves. So she's just like a huge punch girl, and depending on how much time you can dedicate to like buffing her up in the middle of a fight, she can do like bigger and bigger combos. Barrett is like your kind of generic he's like kind of, they're all very equivalent to what they were in the original. Barrett's big and tanky and has ranged, except when he gets a couple of melee weapons. And like comes with defensive moves, so they emphasize like ranged attack and tank. I forget what his special thing is. He might just have like a really big shot he can fire off or something like that. But then in addition to that, they all have actual special moves that take up ATB, or you can use ATB to use items or magic or summons. Limits are huge and flashy. Everybody only gets 2 in the first game. And your only playable characters are Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, Barrett, and
Yuffie, is she in the first one?
well, she has her own DLC. So that's it. You get Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and Barrett. And then Red 13 makes an appearance, but he's a guest character, so you can't control him. And I think for the next one, Sid and Vincent are going to be guest characters. But you also get control of Red 13 and Kate Sith.
Okay.
For Rebirth, in comparison to Remake, every character, so you have like that basic kind of like you can do little damage and there's a stagger meter, and then all of your specials and your limit breaks use ATB or limit bar. And if you want to use items or magic, you use ATB, which is builds up when you're attacking or defending, or slower when you're moving around. In the second one, everybody gets more special attacks that they can do that don't take ATB. So you have cool, flashy stuff you can do in between your regular attacks, and even bigger stuff that does take ATB. In addition, whenever you use, I think what they said recently, because there was a bunch of info that got dropped in the past week, whenever you use ATB, you're also building up combo charges, which are used to have characters do dual techs. Just straight up Chrono Trigger dual techs.
I like that.
Every single character has dual techs with every other single character.
Oh, that's good.
It's good. It's great.
That actually reminds me of something. Sea of Stars does have dual techs.
Yeah.
You have to find them, and they're like hidden out there in the world and like hiding away in corners, and they're like just scrolls. So if you solve a puzzle, sometimes your reward is a tech.
Okay.
I have not gotten any triple techs yet, but different characters get different dual techs with other characters, and sometimes they get like wildly stronger ones.
Uh-huh.
So like my main pair of characters has 3 techs that they do together.
Okay.
They have one that it's just like literally each one jumps to jumps to the enemy and they combo, and you can time it and they'll hit them again.
Okay.
So you can do
Cool. I love time
2
attacks.
instances of slashing, 2 instances of bludgeoning damage. Plus, one of your characters can like enhance their attacks, so they can do a little bit of magic too.
Mm-hmm.
But it also recovers mana because they recover mana
Oh,
when
that's
they do
super good.
physical attacks. But this thing, because they're basically both physically attacking, they both get mana back. So it's a combo that's really good there.
And that really
it-
plays into like the combo of canceling out enemy attacks too.
Yeah, it's really useful for that. And it costs like 1 combo points. You build up combo energy as you fight, and
Okay.
you get like different combo levels. So that is a one combo level. Their 2 combo level is they have an AoE heal, heals the whole party for a bunch of health.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found one hidden in like a secret shrine where one of the characters has like a boomerang that they make out of lunar energy. That like they just basically throw a press into enemies, and it'll bounce off them and come back at her, and she can deflect it off to something else. Well, they end up combining her lunar boomerang with solar energy to basically make one that does both. So the mechanic works exactly the same way. If it flies an enemy, hits them, comes back, you bounce it off, hits another enemy, or hits the same enemy, depending on whether or not it's a boss.
Mm-hmm.
And you can keep it going. And I actually got an achievement for doing that 25 times with a single cast of a spell, and just kept
Okay.
bouncing it off enemies over and over again. But
Like
this is
Mario
dealing
Super Jump
solar-
back in Super Mario RPG.
Basically, yeah. But this is solar and lunar energy, so you're just doing a ton of damage, and that is also 2. So they might get one that costs 3. They might get one that involves more than 2 people. I don't know the full extent of what they're gonna get yet,
Okay.
but so far, every character has been getting techniques.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually kind of wondering if I've missed some of them.
Probably by the sound of it.
Yeah, because there's probably some stuff that I just haven't gone and gotten or found yet. I'm
Mhm.
trying to be pretty good at locating this stuff, but I probably am missing some. But even like the newest character that I got, he already has one combo tech with somebody, and it's just a full on like, oh, it's
They
one
come with it,
combo
or you
point.
found it?
Found it, but found it very quickly afterwards. After
Okay.
recruiting them.
Okay, that's good.
So, yeah, and it's basically is an AoE, lunar damage, and I think like the new character's special damage type, just as an AoE to all enemy units, 1
Mhm.
combo point.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's so good. It's people saying Chrono Trigger was good. Let's make it better,
Yeah.
and they succeeded.
It's about time, really.
Mm-hmm.
We've been lacking stuff like that. I've always been a fan of like big timed attacks, like in Super Mario RPG, or to a kind of lesser extent. Well, actually, to like a kind of expanded extent, Legend of Dragoon had stuff like that. That was really good.
See, I like Legend of Dragoon for its leveling system. It basically was like milestone leveling of like what you got in like Dungeons and Dragons, but they put that in a like a JRPG where 'cause you didn't level from regular enemies, you leveled up of bosses,
That's not
so
true.
they could kind of
You could grind levels in Legend of Dragoon.
you could, but it really wasn't worth it. When enemies were giving you like 50 XP and it was like 10,000 for a level, like if I was close, I would grind to push myself over, but for the most part, I got my levels from boss fights. Because that's how I remember it.
Yeah, that's fair. It's been
Like,
a
you
while for
would
both of us, I
grind-
think.
You would grind in that game, but you would do it because, oh, I'm gonna get this additional like skill or ability if I use my technique
Yeah,
50
yeah.
more times.
You
So
would grind your
train
additions. You would grind
Yeah.
like for for money if you needed it.
Yeah, so
For
you
sure.
you didn't really grind for XP. You would grind for other stuff, and you would get XP as a result.
Right, sure. Anyway, in so FF7 Rebirth has like just a bunch of cool additions to the combat, and a lot of that comes from Yuffie's DLC, where she had like combo moves with Sonon, a new character that was in her DLC. Of course, because you never saw Yuffie in Midgar, but all of her expansion takes place in Midgar. So there's changes to things. Like, you really gotta play these games, because everything that's in the original game is totally there and expanded, and it's all really good. All of the characters are handled like exceptionally well. Yuffie's DLC is pretty great. It not only are they putting like absolutely everything from OG FF7, but like they put in stuff from most obviously they put in a bunch of stuff from Crisis Core. Well, not a bunch of stuff, but they're acknowledging Crisis Core, and it's probably going to play a pretty big part of the next game. They directly put in, and especially in Yuffie's DLC, a bunch of stuff from Dirge of Cerberus, which sucked, but it's good. It's good in the remake.
And
And
like time to let it cook, so yeah.
Well, they heavily revised a lot of it, and it's not. They had a lot of different people cooking this time instead of one. And they're not trying to be super edgy with it. We'll see with Vincent and Sid. Holy shit! But like the Honeybee Inn is fucking fantastic. Don Corneo is amazing. All of it, there's padding in the game. Some of the side quests people didn't really like. The sewers kind of take a little long, but like there's stuff that's like this was 1 or 2 screens in OG FF7, and now it's a full dungeon. But it's cool. And for what they've shown off of Rebirth, they've officially said that game ends at the Lost Capital, at the City of the Ancients. So you're going all the way from the exit of Midgar to just before you start going towards the Northern Crater, which is a lot.
I'm trying to remember where plot-wise where that is. Is the big stabby stab going to happen? I think
that's debatable. You want to know?
I thought that happened in the City of Ancients.
It does happen in the City of Ancients. In the OG FF7, that happens in the City of Ancients. And without spoilering much, you're aware that things are a little different in Remake, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to know my theory for what's going to happen in the City of Ancients?
No stabby stab?
They're not going to kill Aerith. They're going to kill Cloud.
Ooh.
And then later, Cloud will join the party again. Because Zack's stuff is here and in play.
Ah.
There's some voice lines that they very specifically put in with some of the most recent trailers and releases that Sephiroth said that kind of hard confirm some fan theories. Maybe? We don't really know. And so the end of Remake is like, okay, there's so much that's incredibly faithful, and they buff out everything anyone could have possibly liked of OGFF7. And then the end of Remake is like, from here on out though, there's gonna be changes. There's definitely gonna be changes.
We're deviating from the plan.
Right.
You can't do that, but it's so good.
But they're going to, and I trust them because the first one's super good. Like, I have a theory that the Sephiroth that's showing up in Final Fantasy VII Remake is very specifically Advent Children Sephiroth. Like, that shit already happened.
Interesting.
Yeah. But so everything they've showed off looks super good. You get chocobos early on. They're already showing off like mountain climbing chocobos and flying chocobos. You get a bunch of different, what in 14 are called bardings. You get a lot of different cosmetics and dress ups for your chocobo, which may affect their stats. They've showed off little tiny pieces of gold saucer, and from what it looks like, every single mini game is back in.
Not bad.
Except for maybe the Mog House minigame, which is now a thing out in the field that you can interact with. and is its own thing. Dude, it looks fantastic. You can fucking swim. Like, people were showing off clips of them playing, like, behind the scenes beta that was an old build that they were confident with, but it was like a 4 or 5 month old build that had been iterated upon since, but they let some big streamers and content creators play. And it was like a tiny little section just outside of Junin, and then they could go inside Junin and do like the Priscilla and the dolphin stuff, which is totally still there, and do the boss fight there. And like outside of Junin, people were noticing, hey, there's a little island over there with like a capsized pirate ship or something on it. Wouldn't it be cool if you could go out there? And then some of them tried to like hop in the water, and you can just fucking swim in water now. The buggy is back. I think it just looks really super good. I think you would thoroughly enjoy them because they have such a great mesh of combat in between, like, not really an action game and the old turn-based ATB system. And everything they flesh out is fantastic, and everything they add is really super good. All of the changes are very interesting, and no one knows where the finale of that game is going. But, like,
yeah,
some crazy different shit is going to go down at the end of the next one. And Zach is alive.
I did know that from the end of the first, and it's just like,
Right.
wait a minute, how is he?
Right?
Huh.
What are they doing there?
Yeah.
And the way they show stuff at the end of the first one, at the end of Remake, you're like, wait, what is going on? How?
Yeah. Yep. Should be very fun. Like I said, I'm interested, and maybe I will pick it up. I keep seeing it on sale, but I keep not grabbing it when I do notice it. But
It's
are they gonna
so
have
good.
Are they gonna have a sale coming up in the next like couple weeks for Steam?
I
know
have
they have
no
the big
idea.
like Black Friday one, which is
Yeah.
gonna happen, but that's a little bit too late.
I don't know.
I do know I've been watching some streamer show up on Twitter that I follow that is saying like, and now we're doing the next edition of playing Final Fantasy VII Remake as a dating simulator. It's showing a lot of things from the honeybees.
Oh yeah.
They're just kind of memeing on it, and that's their perspective on it. It's
Yeah, they're
amusing.
I suppose interestingly there is still like the couple of different playthroughs I've seen people talk about having, and even when I played through it I got some stuff differently, but I've seen people talking about having entirely separate side missions inside Wall Market based on unknown earlier choices that lead to like different versions of Cloud's dress.
Oh, interesting.
And different versions of Aerith's dress.
Mm.
So there's minor replayability there, but there are like variances. But yeah, I can't recommend that game enough. Also,
I mean, I've got a lot of good games to play right now. Like,
yeah, we both do. It's true.
There isn't enough time.
That's one of my favorite ever, though.
I mean, heck, we still have to do that Xenogears discussion stream, which is going to be fun. At this point, though, we're probably going to need to save it for like Christmas or right around that, just for the fun of it.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
We might have to plan that for this Christmas.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just had to nerd out about that a little bit because everything they put out recently looks fantastic.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Like I said, I enjoy talking with you, and it's always fun to talk with somebody that's wildly passionate about something. Because it's fun and good, and that's kind of why I like these little like discussion streams we have.
Yeah.
Nerding out about games we play, and you know, an hour goes by, and I'm like, oh right, that thing I didn't tell you about in Sea of Stars. They have combo attacks, and they can have a bunch of different combo attacks, and it's all this and it's all that, and it's so good. And I didn't mention any of that when I was giving you my initial analysis of it, but 100% it's there and it's relevant and it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, good stuff out there. We're both playing a lot of good games right now. I'm not sure when I'm gonna finish any of mine. I'm probably gonna. Ironically, I probably started some of them a little bit too soon, and I'm probably gonna finish them before the end of October and have to try and find something to play near the end of it that will, round out spooky month. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure what I'm doing for October either, but I've got an idea.
Yeah, but should be fun. You need to play Sea of Stars. I need to play Blasphemous 1 and 2 and Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, I definitely FF7 Remake. And again, like, I also can't recommend Blasphemous enough. Those games are super, super good.
Mm-hmm.
Blasphemous 1 is also not that long. And they've patched it to be... My only criticism of the first game was like it got kind of instant death spike happy throughout portions, and they patched the platforming to be more forgiving in that regard.
Ah, okay. So they kind of had it as a very little like Ender Lilies of like, yeah, this game will fuck you up.
Yeah, it's not as pissed as Ender Lilies. Like a lot of the fights.
That's good because that game was unreasonably pissed.
Yeah, that game slaps you around pretty hard. Yeah, all of the fights in Blasphemous are like, I want to say better built. There's just more going on, and they're not as like super pissed about perfect execution. But there were portions of the game that were like, man, I hate going through this hallway. Just this one area has too many instant death spikes, and that's far less of a problem now. They're still there, it's just not as angry.
That's good.
Yeah. And then the second game is more Metroidvania, and it's great. It's super good.
Even better. Yeah. Like we said a little bit earlier, I think we've done all the topics we can for the night. We definitely did what we intended to.
Yeah.
But let me look for a raid here.
I'm not going to be able to because I'm over on YouTube. I want to give a shout out. Chika Fuji Lisa is singing over on her stream. She's a great singer.
Nice. I will give a shout out to. No, I can't do it all as one word. Melkor the Great, who is currently doing a collab with Shumi, who I've watched and collabed with previously. So those are who I would like to raid tonight. But I will get that going. Thank you for joining us, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful time. I certainly did. Rad, you can catch him later tonight on his second stream. And you can catch both of us tomorrow night. So we're both going to be streaming something tomorrow. I'm going to be punching more vampires in the face in the Wild West. And Rad, I don't remember what was on your schedule for tomorrow.
I'm doing some more Baldur's Gate tomorrow.
Okay. And then I will be jumping back into Sea of Stars this weekend. And yeah. So, anyway, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever it is in your part of the world. And take care of yourselves, okay?
Atsumaho. See y'all later.
Bye-bye.